starting to build up. On the Thika Superhighway, we are seeing some traffic right there at the Pangani underpass, but nothing coming out of survey. But we're going to keep an eye on things this morning. It's into the weekend and likely to get crazy, so let's start it off right. Just in case you see anything, let us know. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127. Let's keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
Is it?
The only way to...
Yes, it is. It's 5 minutes after 6. A very good morning to you. How are you doing? Welcome to Friday. It's a third day of the 9th month of 2011. Oh, 21. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Nduoko,
Yes.
how are you?
Fine, thank you.
How is it, by the way, on Mombasa Road? Shokimau thingy magic.
Now,
Say.
the service lanes are what are being dug up. And coming into next week, I think that if what has been experienced has been the 7th circle of hell, next week will be the 9th circle of hell. It's going to be terrible because now they're going to start excavating the service lanes. And where there was one lane inbound, now there were 2 lanes outbound. There will now be 1 lane outbound and the service lanes will be completely dug up from the 6th of September. So it's going to be madness.
Okay.
2.0.
So, back to my question. Not how it's going to be next week. How is it?
Oh, no.
How has it been this week?
Great.
Since the complaints and the statements.
Yeah. It has not changed.
No watering of...
No, there's no watering
periodic
taking
watering.
place. They've tried to open up one of the diverted areas that was previously closed.
Mm-hmm.
So that has eased traffic a little bit. But in terms of dust and all of that,
So there are more lanes,
is an old wives'
both
tale.
inbound and outbound.
Yes, but now you're using old Mombasa Road, and the main Mombasa Road is closed completely
Okay.
inbound.
Okay. And there's proper signage?
No?
Do we still have traffic there?
Yes. Yesterday it took me 2 hours from Standard Group to Gateway Mall.
Okay. So what if you were in a vehicle, not walking? How long would it have taken you?
I was in a vehicle. I was in a vehicle. A moving vehicle with tires and everything.
Not walking?
No. I was in a vehicle, my friend.
Oh.
Yeah. And I don't know what it's going to be. And they've given notice to all the traders alongside the service lanes to move because they're going to divert. So now they're going to divert traffic inside the, do I call it estates? Yes.
So
From
into
next week.
Syokimau.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. At least there's some prior warning now that you know this.
Yeah.
So how do you know this?
Actually, I heard it from a taxi driver who said, they've been told, because he also has a stall.
Oh,
He's
he's one of those that have been told to move.
Yep.
Okay. Bwana Muga, how are you?
I'm very well.
Oh, hi, CT.
Hello. Jambo.
Jambo mingi.
Eric Jambo.
Salama kabisa. Ujambo wewe?
Mimi Jambo. Madame Du Jambo.
Oui, monsieur. Salut.
Very good.
Ça va?
What does Jambo actually mean?
In fact, I have a question. What does it mean? I've often asked. I've never been answered.
And it doesn't mean habari gani.
It doesn't mean hello. Does it?
It does.
I was saying things.
Mambo.
What's up?
Jambo.
Mambo. Things.
Kuna mambo na vijambo.
No, see? That's a twist. And a lovely one too. Because it tells you that there are things and there are also things. But I am well.
It's basically asking, je, kuna jambo?
Yes.
Is
there an issue?
Yeah.
Is there a matter?
That's
Do you
it,
have a
it's-
matter? Yes.
So when you say Jambo Mingi, you have many issues.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That actually is an honest answer.
Okay, so it's actually, right. So when you say Sina Jambo, that's also,
That is usually a social lie.
That's why you say si jambo. Jambo, si jambo.
all coming to me. For the
Has it,
first time in many, many, many years.
it has arrived at last.
It has arrived. I get it now. I've been walking around in a funky cloud. I don't understand these things. Now I get
Okay.
it. I must thank you two gentlemen
A funky cloud.
for giving life some meaning.
You know,
Welcome.
funky. Takes ones to the 70s.
Yes.
Funkadelic. Bootsy Collins.
What?
The guy led a band called Parliament.
What?
The band was called Parliament.
Yes.
So Parliament was led by Bootsy Collins. Explains a lot.
Hey, that doesn't just.
A lot.
Hey. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, everybody. We're going to have some interesting conversations today. So yesterday we got this donation from the Canadians of some 300 or so thousand.
When they landed, they were 450.
Then
When they
they
received, they were
reported they were
389. So I'm not quite sure what's going on.
Accounting issues? Is it a binary issue?
Or did they just a disappearing issue? Dun, 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 dun.
Or maybe when they were loaded onto the plane, somebody made an error. They were actually 380. So when they landed, they were now confirmed.
There were 389,000.
389 is what reached Kenya.
Okay.
450 is what they were told.
But you know that's not bad.
It's just
It's
100
VAT.
like that.
Yeah, 450, 380.
Not bad.
We are talking about plus VAT or minus VAT.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's more than half.
380 plus VAT. It becomes to 400. Yeah, that's
Yes.
it. Yeah. So they've come.
Yes.
Okay. And we are still, going on with receiving more and more. We are being tunasaidiwa sisi in Kenya, getting more and more of these vaccines. We know that the private sector has also joined in this push to get vaccines into the country. Through KEPSA, they've been allowed by the Ministry of Health to mobilize funds from their members of KEPSA, and then the Ministry of Health, the government will procure vaccines. They will be given to the KEPSA, and the vaccination centers will be established for members of KEPSA. So private sector is helping the government to procure. Taxes are not enough.
It's something
Yeah,
else.
we need to give chip in some more. Harambee spirit, as we know it. We'll be talking to the KEPSA CEO, Carol Karaoke, at 8 o'clock. She'll explain to us, so why are they doing this? Why should the private sector be paying for anything?
Did we actually get a full account of that Harambee Commission that had been set up for COVID?
Do they even know that they still exist?
Let me just say it is a very good morning. and let us continue with our discussion.
Imagine. So let's start the conversation with COVID. News out of Israel.
Yes.
So Israel, is in the world.
It is.
Is the leading country in the world in terms of the percentage of the population who's been fully vaccinated.
Yes.
That is 2 doses.
Yes.
The Israeli government has decided if you have only been vaccinated twice, then you're not fully vaccinated. So they're rolling out a 3rd dose of the COVID vaccine. And so far, they have done over 25% of the population have received a 3rd jab. But Israel has recorded the highest spike of COVID-19 cases in its history.
True.
What's happening? With a majority of the population fully vaccinated, then we're still seeing a spike.
And huge numbers. I mean, we're talking in the tens of thousands in a particular day. So what was it that we're looking at? New cases now, 16,000. An average caseload. I mean, we're looking at 10,000 new cases having been reported yesterday alone. And the day before that, was 20,000. 20,523 new cases, 42 new deaths on the 1st of September in Israel. So things are not looking pretty good here as well. So the question is, what is causing this new infection and this spread rate?
What I'm asking is, yes, that's a valid question, but is it what is informing what we are now seeing as the introduction of a third dose?
But the third dose, the introduction of the third dose came before you saw this spike.
Before we learned of the spike or before the spike was made known?
But you know, they have been reporting their increase every day. They've been saying, this is what we find. If you look at what has happened in the last 1 week, for example, on the 31st of August, there were 1,687 cases. On the 30th, there were 11,000, 6,000 the day before that, 12,000 before that, 4,000 the day before that. So it's been gradually increasing, and then some days where they were less and then much more. But at the start of this is when they said, all right, let's think about a third dose. But by then, things have already hit the roof. So with a population of less than 5 million people, and you're having 16, 12, 20,000 cases of COVID in a single day, this is a big deal. So in terms of tracing the origin of this new infection, because they were actually doing really well, they were able to whittle this down to cases of hundreds in a day. Now you're looking at 4,000, 12,000, 6,000, 11,000. Unfortunately, they've not been able to say this is exactly where it came from. Did somebody travel into the country and then we saw the spread? They did open up the economy because remember a couple of months ago, they were on lockdown and they said that we're going to go into a slow easing up and opening up of things, children going back to school, etc., etc. If it was at that point now that we saw the spread, we do not know. But it doesn't look good right now. The highest ever recorded in this country on a single day happened just 2 days ago.
Despite a fifth of the population having received a third dose.
Sorry, a booster at that.
What about the number of deaths?
So, I mean, deaths comparatively are low, right? 54, 39, 3 on a day where you have 12,000 cases, 43 deaths on a day when you have 20,000 cases, and 36 deaths on a day when you have 10,000 cases. Again, in as much as they're actually doing really well with their reporting, not all of these deaths occurred on a single day.
Yes, that's number one. Number two, when you look at the rate of hospitalization, we've talked of infections. What about hospitalization? What about severe cases?
Well, we'd have to look at the details of that. But then again, even when they have had severe cases, they've been able to handle it. We're not looking at a situation, I understand, we're not looking at a situation where there's no space or the like, but people are hospitalized.
You see why I'm asking these questions? There's been a discussion that keeps coming. It's an on and off discussion about herd immunity.
So the people in hospital, according to a report that was yesterday's report, 1,123 people in hospital.
Yes.
222 in ICU.
So they don't have a health burden
No, they don't.
when it comes to patients.
I
It's
mean, you're
just
looking
that
at 10% of the infected are in hospital.
Yes.
The remaining are...
precisely. So essentially, the infection simply tells you how very efficient this virus is in spreading.
Yeah.
And it also tells me that perhaps that is what has informed, based on research that we know that has been emanating from the UK and the US, that this third dose has very positive results. But that having been said, the discussion of herd immunity doesn't come into the discussion. And yet, I am thinking this is where it ought to. Because the understanding of a critical mass having been reached by the number of people who are infected ought to get to a point where people, the body of human beings and the body of those who are infected, there needs to be an MOU that the virus has arrived at so that your body can now cope with it.
Sure.
But clearly, they understand and they believe that the body needs assistance, hence the third dose. But you see, the question now that actually in my mind really comes to the fore is, this virus will most certainly mutate again.
Sure.
So what's the way forward?
Keep boosting until...
Not really. Remember, there have been discussions about attacking the virus within your DNA. It's the same discussion that was had with HIV when they were figuring out how do you deal with this. And it's a discussion. I'm calling it a discussion because it's something that is still being talked about. Research is still being worked on, and there are positive signs that there could be a way in which you can actually fight viruses, HIV, as well as even now COVID, by, this is my expression, tinkering with your DNA to ensure that it's able to actually cope with something new and as dangerous as this. Yes.
Let's take this break then at 19 minutes after 6. Kenya's biggest conversation, live streaming on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Where are you? Are you online? Yes, if you're online, say hello. And we will be acknowledging you shortly before we take a look at today's Proverb and the newspaper headlines. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice.
We're looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning at 14, highs of 22 and lows of 13. Out in Nakuru, it's clear at 15, highs of 24. It'll come down to lows of 14. Light rain in Nyeri this morning at 14, highs of 21 and lows of 13. Out in Kisumu, it's raining at 19, highs of 29 and lows of 18 today. In Kakamega, mostly clear conditions at 15 with highs of 27. It'll come down to lows of 15. Mombasa this morning is also wet at 23, highs of 28. It'll come back down to lows of 23. Malindi is partly cloudy, might give way to rain later, highs of 29 and lows of 24. Let's look out into Kampala, where this morning it's clear at 18, highs of 25 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam, raining this morning at 21, highs of 30 and lows of 21. In Lagos this morning, it's raining as well, 25, highs of 29 and lows of 25. Kinshasa is partly cloudy at 22, it'll go to highs of 29 today. Out east into Beijing, it's sunny at 28 into Friday afternoon, highs of 30 and lows of 22. Paris this morning is clear at 14, it'll go to highs of 27. Looking into London, it's cloudy at 15, highs of 21 and lows of 14. And in New York, still Thursday night, it's clear at 19. Coming into Friday, we'll see highs of 24 and lows of 15.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
22
Nairobi.
minutes after 6. A very good morning to you. So people are online. Yes?
Yes, they are.
It's a happy Friday.
It is.
Okay.
Noah Makori says, as usual, thought-provoking conversations like that COVID story and the need for a third jab. Indeed. Good morning to you, Noah. Shem Ongwae has, for the last 3 days, been saying, say hi to Latif. Shem, Latif, hi Latif.
Please tell Shem I said hi.
Shem, Eric Latif says hi.
Please tell Shem I've heard the greetings and I've also said hi.
Shem, C.T. Muga has heard the greetings and he has also said hi. Actually, I'm also waiting for my own greeting. Stephen Odwar is watching from Loresho and says good morning. Amy Flipped, is tuned in from Bondo, Kachola, Awasi. Patrick Ellie says good morning from Maseno today. Lucy Wakambo is tuning from Nakuru. Wellington Katera is tuning from Garissa and watching live. Now Phil says, tuned in from Embakasi. I have a question concerning the vaccine we received yesterday. At the airport, while receiving consignment, they told us that we had received 459,000 vaccines. Reaching the facility storage, the vaccine had already decreased to 389,000. And Nyeri, Kenya, everything is possible. Moses Gashari, a thumbs up to you too, my man. Charles Muthui, good morning, tuning from Mwea. Queen Maniara is from Meru as well. Beda Asli tuning from Machakos. Simon Melly is watching. Waterman Jeffrey is tuning from Minneapolis. And from Mogadishu, that's where Namswa Elisha is. Moses Gashari says, good morning, team. Happy birthday to your wife. Absolutely, happy birthday. And yours is coming on Sunday rather. Happy birthday to you. David C., we see you. Good morning to you, Sir Haron. Hats tipped off. Good morning to everybody and thanks for joining us.
Karibuni sana kila mtu. City, today's proverb.
Indeed, today's proverb. Today's proverb comes from the mountain. I did promise that I would, and I was reading them and actually finding some of them quite amusing. Okay, But the one that I've chosen is I'm going to focus on the English interpretation of it and how it was presented to me by a very good friend of mine, an elder in that community,
Okay.
by the name of Davis Njoka. Okay? Where there are elders, you don't pour water anyhowly. In other words, where there are elders, there is order.
Where there are elders, you don't pour water anyhowly.
Yes,
That's not a word.
that's Kenyanese.
It's Kenyanese. Are you saying you don't understand what it says?
Saying it's not a word.
It's a word.
Meaning you don't understand it anyhowly. Like the question you just asked. You know,
Fwa. You don't
asked
just
it.
water.
You
Pour
just
water.
asked the question
Fwa.
anyhowly.
Where there are elders, you don't just pour water.
Anyhowly.
Fwa.
No.
Reja, reja.
Jagala, jagala.
Yeah.
Bas. See? That jagala gets the heart of the matter completely. Wouldn't you agree, Eric?
Kamsa. So this is on, from which side of Mount Kenya? East or west?
Central.
The man is Mr. Who?
It's called Davis Njoka. He's the man who lives in Thika.
Davis Njoka.
Yes.
Is
My-
it from east or
my
west?
friend. Central.
Mount Kenya Central.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Njoka. Let's look at the papers then today.
Okay.
See you go.
Oh, okay. I was waiting.
Don't just look
All
at
right.
me
100
anyhow.
days in office for Chief Justice Martha Koome. She's talking about wide-ranging issues, and she reveals that it took just a letter to the president to unlock a stalemate that had paralyzed the judiciary and brought the two arms of government to the brink of war. This is her quote. I just wrote a letter to President Uhuru Kenyatta on the 3rd of June 2021 asking for an urgent meeting. The letter detailed 3 issues: the administration of justice, the judiciary kitty, and the budget. So she's talking about, how her experience has been over the last 3 months. And she's saying, this is how I want Kenyans to remember me at the end of my tenure. And she's gone on through different things. But she's saying that enlightening Kenyans about their rights, showing them how to resolve cases without necessarily going to court, and enhancing their access to justice. This is what she wants to be remembered for at the end of her tenure. So making justice making justice easy is what she wants Kenyans to remember her for. And she's taking the steps to make sure that this is done. In order for that to happen, she did then need to say, look, the judicial kitty has been something that has been plagued forever. Give us independence over this so that we can be able to administer justice in an easier way. She says she has many plans in place to achieve this. They've included making efforts to end the bad blood that has existed between the judiciary and the executive. She wants to build a new headquarters for the judiciary and establish a training institute that will sit on 55 acres in Gong. She also wants to make sure all courts are digitized before she calls it a day. Right now, it's extremely manual. Remember when we had that conversation some months ago,
Yep.
when we're told judgments are written, handwritten by, cases are handwritten. And so she's saying, look, filing is still extremely manual, even though there's, a little bit of digitization in terms of entering of.
So she has
case
some
files and
capital
such.
intensive projects that she's looking at. One, digitizing the judiciary, entire judiciary. 2, building a new headquarters.
Yep.
3, building a new training institute, because there's already one. There's a judicial training institute in Muthui. And there's a headquarters for the judiciary in Nairobi CBD. Where? Okay.
She has big plans. And she's saying that, you know what? To even start this conversation, all it took was writing a letter, and she was given an audience.
She wasn't.
She
The president,
she
she asked for a meeting. The president appointed judges.
yeah, okay. She says, from what she's saying, is that what she's trying to say by that is that she believes these conversations can be had. Instead of sitting in your corner, the other person is sitting in theirs. There's no conversation that's taking place. So when she's saying all it took, she's saying that all it really takes is to have a conversation. And she's ready to do that. And you might see some changes come about as a result of this.
Where?
Early days yet. Early days yet.
She seems to be quite confident, however. She also goes on to say that a lot of these things, in all in all my meetings with them, now them being judges and magistrates, I have always said that power resides in the office of the Chief Justice, has been delegated to all, the power that resides in the office of the Chief Justice has been delegated to all staff, and they should therefore discharge their functions knowing they are Chief Justices in their own right. So as opposed to wanting to hold the power, she has said, look, everybody here is working on the same page, so let's do it.
She says they hired a consultant, paid a consultant 45 million shillings. Consultant came back with a one-line recommendation. The judiciary needs its own police unit.
Bas. Eric, we are
We are moving from
We are
Kemsa.
moving.
Kemsa.
Kemsa is not coming through.
no, we are consulting.
Consultancy is the way to
We are
go.
consulting.
45 million shillings, one-line recommendation. Judiciary needs its own police unit to enhance security of judges and court premises.
Actually, we can
Lipa.
we can promise right now.
Yeah.
We will give you a paragraph.
Ours will be longer.
Longer.
We'll even give you some
And in
details.
detail.
on how
And
it
we'll
is.
Same
also-
price.
And we'll also mention other things that are needed, like tea, samosas, mandazis. Very important.
She walked to the office of the president on Harambee Avenue, and by the time she was leaving, 3,000 police officers had been attached to the courts permanently. Yes? Yeah. And then from May to July this year, at least 77,000 new cases had been filed. During the same period, 70,000 cases had been resolved. 87 of these were at the magistrates' courts. Most of the cases that were resolved were dispensed with at the magistrates' courts, while 13 were at the High Court. She now wants judges and magistrates to clear all cases before them within 3 years. Maraga, her predecessor, had said 5 years. In all my meetings with them, I assume the judicial officers, I have always said the power that resides in the office of the Chief Justice has been delegated to all staff, and they should therefore discharge their functions knowing they are Chief Justices in their own right. Yeah? Yes. So we've invited Chief Justice Martha Koome to come and join us in the Situation Room on Thursday next week. Yeah? Mark it in your calendar. Next week, Thursday. Mark it in your calendar. Chief Justice Martha Koome on the hot seat. Very good one, senor. Okay. Let's just talk about this one briefly. Ruto fights back. He says, oh, sasa umenianika? Umenianika? Okay. It's okay. It's true. All those things that you say I own, yes.
Even
70% I own. Some of those things I don't own. In fact, there are some other things that I own
that you didn't put.
that you didn't put there. Should have put them. I have shares in Safaricom. I have shares in Kenya Airways. Why didn't you put them?
Hey, chicken,
This is just
madness.
drama and drama upon drama on things that are happening in this country. But then there's a whole part of what C.S. Matiang'i told parliamentarians the other day. There's a piece of land, several thousands of acres, called Mutara Ranch in Laikipia County. Okay? This one, it used to be ADC land, and then it was leased out to some individuals. Ruto is saying, me, I don't have any ADC land.
He said
It's been
not his.
reported many times before that there's a piece of land in Laikipia called Mutara ADC where there are police officers who guard this particular piece of land. So what happens to that? On February 11th, 2017, the Standard reported that a top government functionary had leased the farm near Rumuruti Township from the ADC. This may have been because of the tight security around the 15,000 acres, which also spared it from attacks by armed herders that drove livestock into farms. Despite being a private property after the lease was entered, the ranch still has a fully fledged police camp with personnel from the regular and AP sections. The police live in temporary iron sheet houses visible from the dirt Nanyuki Rumuruti Road that cuts across the ranch, a 30 minutes drive from Rumuruti town. When asked why there was a police camp inside a private ranch in 2017, the then Laikipia Police Commander Simon Kipkeo said, he was new in the area. He came, he found a police residing there. So any questions? And Uliza Nairobi. Small drama.
Small drama.
Just few
Actually,
things here.
it isn't small.
Of course
Of
not.
course, it's not small city.
The gloves are off.
Eh?
Yep,
They're off.
the gloves are off.
Okay.
And
Will it remove ugali in our plates?
you see, this is really the point. Our lives will not change, not even one iota. Because if the focus is on this thing that seems to be growing bigger by the day, you will not hear any meaningful discussions about what really matters.
Yeah.
You are not going to hear of any programs that are dealing with the 12 counties where people are facing starvation. You will not hear of any forward movement to ensuring that people's health are comprehensively taken care of.
Yeah.
The things that count, you are not going to hear discussions about the elderly and the infirm being looked after and plans for them being put in place. You are not going to hear.
You're not going to hear any of that. You will not even hear about this ADC land, Agricultural Development Corporation land, in Laikipia County, and the potential it has in feeding thousands of people. You will not hear. You will not know who exactly owns this particular piece of land.
We'll go around in
Who's
circles.
benefiting from it? No, it's not mine, it's not yours, it's not. But point is, it is not under ADC. And it's not benefiting us.
And yet, when you consider what the ADC, the entire story, what was set up for, it was very forward-looking. I mean, the thinking behind that whole agricultural concept. You have a farmers' union, KFA. You have ADC. You have Agricultural Finance Corporation. There was very good thinking, and that thinking, if it was followed to the letter, believe me, this issue of food security would not be we would be having a totally different discussion about food
Yep.
security.
We'll be talking about surplus.
Yes.
And where we're exporting it.
Yes.
24 minutes to 7. Let's see how the roads are looking like.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for it.
This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. You know, we are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
City, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, say, "Oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do"? Has you ever that kind of? Has anybody been
I will not listen.
a bit of advice? Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with SpiceFM.
All right, it's building up on Mombasa Road today, and we're looking at it inbound and outbound as well. That area just between Sabaki now and the SGR. There's a lot of traffic there. North Airport Road, going towards Bakassi, that entire area, quite a lot of traffic building up this morning. Nothing too crazy just yet, which is all right. Traffic building up on Langata Road, but moving. Makadara at the train station on Jogo Road, it's also building up, but moving. Now traffic is really building up just at the section going into the city from Pangani out towards Moranga Road. That is what looks heavy. Kiambu Road not looking too bad right now, joining with the Thika Superhighway. Not too much of a headache. Coming out of Western is also building up some. So let's keep an eye on what's going around the city. The Eastern, Southern and Northern bypass is looking pretty good right now, as well as the Red Link Road this morning. Talk to us where you might get stuck. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice.
spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Conversations continue. City, what are you looking at in the papers?
I am looking at the Business Daily, and the headline is NHIF claims down 4.5 billion on reduced hospital visits. When I first read it, I paused. And when you talked to me, I was chewing on that pause and asking myself, what does this mean? Because the first thing that jumped in my mind when I read it was, this is not good news. Because this saving is not because suddenly people are well, it's because NHIF is not paying hospital bills. So long as there is the slightest hint that it's COVID, they're not paying. So if you take the view that very many people who actually go to hospital either go because they probably didn't know they had COVID or acquired because they get there, NHIF does not have to pay.
Let me ask you.
Ask me.
This is a report. Is it a financial statement? Is it a report of a financial year? Is it looking at a year? Because we could be talking about, is it looking at last year when there was proper reduced hospital visits encouraged by the government?
Let me read it for you.
Please.
So that you can understand it. I started off with my interpretation of it, but let me read it out, okay? Drops in payout eases pressure on insurer, which posted a decline in premium inflows. Okay? Medical claim payouts by NHIF dropped by 4.51 billion shillings in the year to June. The first dip in 15 years. Okay?
So between July last year and June this year. Okay.
Dip, as patients avoided hospital for fear of contracting the coronavirus.
Okay.
Data by NHIF shows that 52.04 billion was paid out in the medical claims in the year up to June 30th, down from, and I turn my pages to page 4, where the story continues.
Call 3.
Page 4, where 56.5 billion spent in the previous period, helped by reduced hospital visits. Okay? Reduced hospital visits.
Okay. I get it.
Now you understand why I interpreted it the way I did?
No. I have my own interpretation.
Okay. Does that prevent you from understanding my interpretation?
Yes.
Okay, how exactly? How?
Because my interpretation is, it is not that people are going to hospital only because of COVID. It's that people are avoiding to go to hospital. People with other ailments are avoiding to go to hospital for fear of contracting COVID in the hospitals. And this particularly was the case last year.
Yeah.
Especially, remember when the first lockdown in March, so April, May into June, there was that whole issue. So probably it indicates that maybe it continued. Because around June, July, the hospitals and the government was now encouraging people, please go to hospital, visit hospital for any other cases that you may have. The measures have been put in place to for safety of patients who are admitted to hospital. But then this report seems to indicate that there were fewer hospital visits and therefore fewer claims from the hospitals.
Reduced payouts.
And then reduced payouts.
And I am saying that, and I'm in agreement with you with regards to the fact that people are not going to hospitals. But I'm saying they're also not paying if you happen to have COVID.
Yes.
So it forms part of that not paying out. Yes. So remember, what takes you to hospital is not COVID. You have a problem with breathing.
Yes.
Okay? You have a problem with this and the other. They test you. They find COVID. They're not treating COVID. They're treating whatever else brought you there. They will not pay. But the fear, you are right, Eric, plays an important role.
Absolutely. It does. All right. 23 billion shilling project splits Kenya and the World Bank. This is on the back page of The Nation today. President Kenyatta's decision to stop development of infrastructure in secondary schools under a 22.8 billion shilling scheme has set the government on a collision course with the World Bank. The global lender says procurement for the project may have to be done afresh after government stopped the release of funds. The World Bank was to provide 22.8 billion shillings between 2017 and 2023 to improve infrastructure in secondary schools to enable them to absorb all primary school leavers. Remember when we talked about the opening of schools and we looked at this particular issue? So where are they going to go now that the system will change? Now we're going from grade 6, 7 and 8 being introduced.
Yes.
What's going to happen to the extra? So apparently this was put in place in terms of a structure with this supposed funding. But now, with the order to stop all of this, then the question by the World Bank is, so then what happens to the infrastructure that we had proposed to absorb all of these students? It was targeting schools in 30 counties, the project that targeted schools in 30 counties included helping the government to hire and train teachers, provide scholarships to needy learners, and customize curricula. In January, the president directed Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha not to release the funds, citing a needs analysis of the schools. The study by the government was completed, and sources in the ministry now say emphasis has been shifted to getting all primary school leavers to join secondary school. While Professor Magoha said the World Bank funded secondary education quality improvement project has not been suspended, when he appeared before the National Assembly Education Committee last month, the nation has seen the confidential directive issued to the minister ordering payments to be halted. So if payments are halted, project is halted, right?
Wow.
Yep. World Bank says, no, that is not what we agreed.
What? Okay. So I have a story here, and remember there was a story sometime about a Kiambu tycoon who had reportedly been kidnapped or had disappeared. And people did not know what happened. Last September, Julius Getao left a suicide note saying he was going to take his life by jumping into River Thika to escape his creditors. He did not jump into the river. He went underground. He resurfaced 11 weeks later to find that his troubles with creditors had gone from bad to worse, and they have started auctioning off his property. Having worked his way up the ladder of riches from a hawker in Thika town to a multi-millionaire, the story of how the COVID-19 pandemic has devastated Getao's general merchandise wholesale business, setting him up with creditors resonated with the business community, a majority of whom were undergoing similar troubles. Police did not believe his claims that he had been kidnapped and that he was being held hostage in a house by some men who forced him to be their worker. Remember, that was the story. The police went and rescued him, and
he was working as a
he was washing
clothes
and washing dishes. The police were like, please. Now, go through Garam Investment Auctioneers. He has been served notice that his land in Thika, measuring 0.228 acres, on which sits a 2-bedroom bungalow, 2 blocks of 7 single-room rental units, and an ablution block, which has 2 bathrooms and 2 cloakrooms, will be auctioned. Also attached for auction is 0.0482 acres in Majengo in Thika, on which sits the 5-story Kaharati apartments. On the ground floor is a shop, 6 bed-sitters, and a servant's quarters. In total, the property has 42 bed-sitters. The other property attached is at Happy Valley Residential Plot, measuring 0.192 acres, and which has remnants of a demolished maisonette. The 3 properties are valued at 80 million shillings by Thika-based Genesis 2 valuers, but the auctioneers want to dispose of them to recover 18 million shillings. Things are thick.
So even after the kidnap, it doesn't mean they'll leave him alone.
Well, yeah.
Has to pay still.
Yeah, that's what they say. Hawataki kujua.
Kidnap or not, pay us our money.
Hatutaki kujua. I said I had 2 stories. Let me do my second one.
Okay.
Declare drought a national disaster. Governors demand. There's increasing alarm in the counties amid reports that the ongoing drought could worsen. Governors have now urged President Uhuru Kenyatta to declare the famine affecting arid and semi-arid lands a national disaster. In a meeting with the UN resident coordinator Stephen Jackson, the county bosses described the situation as overwhelming. The meeting was held to discuss mitigation for the ongoing drought in the northern parts of the country. The governors, under the banner of the Frontier Counties Development Council, in a joint statement, called for livelihood support, including the distribution of relief food to the most vulnerable. They also want cash transfer programs set up immediately. And we are urging the national government, they said, to start emergency livestock offtake to cushion pastoralists against heavy losses. This was said by their leader, Governor Ali Korane of Garissa. Counties are Garissa, Isiolo, Lamu, Mandera, Marsabit, Tana River, and Wajir. It should be like, a no-brainer, right?
Yeah. It would be that you didn't need anybody to open their mouth and say, declare it a disaster when you see people starving on a daily basis. You need to encourage them to say that it is a disaster, emergency situation.
Is there any indication of what they have done so far as a county?
The counties themselves.
Beyond raising
the governors,
it to the national level, yes.
The Frontier Counties Development Council has urged member counties to reprioritize their budgets and deal with the drought. It has also declared the drought a county-level emergency in northeastern and demanded a ward development fund set up by end of December 2021. It has been tough over the past 12 months. The 3 rainy seasons in the region were suppressed, leading to pasture and water scarcity. This is what the Garissa, this is Ali Roba, who is the governor of where? Wajir. That's what he said.
The counties that face this sort of problem face it pretty
Mandera governor. I was saying Wajir has a new governor. Mandera governor Ali Roba.
They face these problems year in, year out.
Yes.
Now, you're telling me that when you are planning and budgeting, you do not consider that you as a county have this as a problem. Just like you plan for health, you plan for education, you plan for everything else that you plan for. You don't consider.
You're geographically prone
You
to
know,
this.
Let me tell you what they've done. Some counties have begun buying weak animals from pastoralists in an offtake program. The animals will be slaughtered and the meat distributed among poor households. Samburu Governor Moses Lenol Kulal said they are aiming to buy between 5,000 and 10,000 animals in the first phase of this program. The current drought is pushing out pastoralists to invade private ranches, while others are fighting for available scarce resources. Instead of waiting for the animals to die due to the ongoing drought, we are rolling out this offtake program.
Eric, right there, you actually hit on the nerve. Let me explain to you why I'm saying you hit on the nerve. Many of these communities are pastoralists. Is that not so? And it is their livelihood, and the livelihood here I'm referring to their cattle, to their livestock, that often face the brunt of this. Now, you tell me, year in, year out, this is a problem that occurs. Instead of waiting to slaughter these animals, is there not anything that can be done to ensure that when you see that evil day coming, there is something that you can do? Why do I ask the question?
Is there not something that can be done so that there's something you can do?
Yes, precisely.
Why do you ask the question? Go on.
I'm asking the question because I look at a similar problem such as this one, and it faces wildlife. Because there is wildlife in some of those areas. And I look at the Kenya Wildlife Services, they plan ahead. You will find that what they have done, they have ensured that sources of water are available. Meaning, so that, yes, animals will have that problem, but there is somewhere they can migrate to and they can go to. Animals usually don't need human beings to tell them where to go to get these things.
To find this.
We are the ones who interfere with their processes by putting a huge something in the middle of somewhere. So we interfere with the corridor that they use to actually get what they need. What am I saying? Simply put, a problem that recurs that often is a problem you can plan for.
Especially since you know that this is the general pattern of things. You know that sometime next year
time
it will happen. We've never gone a year where this story has not occurred. No. So you have an idea that will. And who says that you can't prepare for it? If it doesn't happen, well and good. But you can prepare to have some things in place.
So this is talking about putting up water sources. This is dams and water ponds.
Damming your rainwater. It's
it doesn't rain. It hasn't rained in 4 months. 4 seasons. That's a problem.
It even rains in the desert.
Yeah, once in 10 millennia.
What I'm trying to say is, and even in those deserts, they're what they call oases.
Yeah, exactly those ones. Right. Okay. Well, look,
If there's, sorry, you get where I'm going with this.
I totally understand what you're saying. There are ways of, because of the fact that you know that these areas are prone to certain things, there are things that actually can be done. I remember looking at something, and is this oasis that you're talking about. There is a National Geographic story that was done about people who tap water from plants, and they've been able to. From plants, from the dew in the morning. And it's happened in the desert. It's also happened in, I believe, in South America, the country, I think it was Peru. They're able to tap this water, consistent tapping of droplets of water. I'm talking minimal amounts until they pipe this water and it's gushing. It's simple technology that they've put in place. It happens on this planet where other red-blooded human beings are existing. I'm not saying go into such intricate developments, but I'm saying that there is always something that can be done. Always. Rather than say, oh yes, we're in drought, let's call it a disaster. It's not the first time that calls for a disaster have been made. Let's call it a disaster. Let's buy their livestock. Can there be solutions towards permanency? That you know that you're in this prone area. Can there be something that can be done? That's my question.
I remember, is it some 10, 15 years ago, when a similar problem arose? Yes. There's a gentleman I worked with, a very forward-looking gentleman. He had a farm somewhere in Eastern Province, somewhere in Cumberland. I can't remember where exactly. And he used to talk about it, and I thought, well, it's a bit far-fetched. I said, the reason why I bought this land, it's very cheap. But what I've been trying to do is ensure that there is water so that I grow grass, I grow trees. He said, I've been doing this for quite some time. And I asked him, to what end? He said, I'm going to get rich. I'm quoting him verbatim. I said, what do you mean? He said, a drought is going to hit soon. And people will be selling their cattle for even 500 shillings. He said, I'm waiting for that day. I witnessed that day.
It happened.
It happened. And he not only bought them, he knew where to take them, and he knew how to feed that cattle. And he said, I'll give it a couple of months. And
Took
then
them somewhere, fattening.
Yes, he owned the property. It was his. But it's something he had invested. It was over a period of why he came from that area and he had noticed. So he planned for it. Now, this is an individual who is enterprising. And he told me people were begging him to buy the cattle. Now, what am I saying? I am saying we've had drought for
100% city. I agree with you, and that brings us back to that. You see that conversation about the ADC land,
yes,
right in Mutara,
yes,
thousands of acres. Where there's a private ranch where, well, right now, even everybody else who's going and raiding ranches is not raiding this particular private ranch. Can you imagine if this entire ranch had actually been turned into a fattening place?
Yes,
where livestock offtake is taking place from all these counties. When livestock is brought here, fattened, sold.
Yes.
So don't buy the livestock now from the people at this price.
No. Give them value.
Transfer it to ADC land, give it value, sell it at market value, good quality animal. Then the farmer is actually making double the amount of money that you should be paying him now.
Yes. And if you want to deduct the cost of whatever,
of transporting
and all
fine,
of that,
but the farmer will be infinitely better off as a result of that.
Yep.
Sure.
And this particular, and it's a resource that can be utilized by anybody.
It's a national resource.
Yes. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to come from that particular, from Laikipia. No. You can come from Marsabit, you can come from Garissa, you can come from anywhere, but they tell you this is a holding area.
Yeah.
For the longest time, this Kenya Meat Commission that we keep talking about, they've always had a holding area.
They do. But Chuma now, they are actually redoing it.
Yes. It's not as though all cattle that are brought there are slaughtered that same day. No. They keep you, they make sure that they're sufficiently medicated, fed, fattened.
Right.
These aren't things that can't be done. So it can't be that you have governors talking as though they are us. You see, this is the thing I find surprising. Someone in leadership has authority, has had the means.
It's calling for somebody else in leadership to do something.
Yes.
And the position. So it's as though you're calling upon yourselves to say, now that we are here, can we now?
We
who
as
else are you talking
governors,
to? We
and that's
are
why I was
governors
asking
are calling
Governor
upon
Ongwae the other day,
ourselves.
why is it that governors behave as if they are second fiddle?
Yes.
Like they're smaller brother in this.
You're the county
in the
boss.
country.
You're the county
My friend,
boss.
You're in charge of a government.
Yeah. County government is under
Keep
you.
calling on the national government. Oh, national government do this. Oh, national government do the other. Oh, national government.
You know, the Harambee spirit is often based on something very fundamental. Huh? There's a need, but the question is always asked, so what do you have so that we can help put
or assist?
Yeah.
You don't start with nothing.
You don't have. You have a.
You have to have
already, they
something.
have a structure.
Yes.
The Frontier Counties Development Council.
Yes.
Which is an economic bloc.
Yes.
So, what have you done in the last 8 years as the Frontier County Development Council?
Sometimes these Kenyans are completely let down.
These Kenyans, telling you.
Kenya's biggest conversation. Keep it right here. We'll be looking at other big stories. In fact, we'll continue this conversation for a bit into the next hour, right? And remember, we'll be talking about vaccine and vaccine rollout in the country at 8 o'clock with the KEPSA CEO. Good morning. It's now 7 a.m.
Sugar and spice and everything I know. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. The number of police officers providing protection to senior government officials may be reduced if Interior CS Fred Matiang'i's recommendations are approved by Parliament and law drafted and passed. Matiang'i wants the number of Deputy President's security detail be reduced to 30, a move aimed at preventing the misuse of security officers by high-ranking individuals. Matiang'i's proposals are to be backed by a National Security Committee Chair, Larry MP Peter Mwangi.
We have been riding on this, as I say, unregulated question on the numbers and the extent of deployment. And now is the time for us to look at it again and come up with a statutory action that will now regulate the numbers and say, for example, even if you are VVIP, the ratios of the officers deployed to you will not exceed this number.
After Deputy President William Ruto stated that he is ready for a lifestyle audit, Kieni MP Kanini Kega now says that every government employee should disclose their wealth in order to be accountable. Kanini said many leaders have assets whose acquisition is suspect, hence the need for audit before being given any leadership position.
I mean, it's so simple. Lifestyle audit, even for us, we always feel, and I have done that myself, even when I was joining Parliament, even my colleagues and even ministers, you feel a very simple form. You know, you feel what you own so that by the end of your term, if you have more money than you have earned, you're supposed to justify.
Makueni Governor Professor Kivutha Kibwana, National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi Mwakhisa Kitui, and NAG Kenya leader Martha Karua have formed a new political coalition, Muungano wa Uzalendo. The leaders vow to work together to see one of them become president. However, according to Mwakhisa Kitui, their union will not be under the guidance of anyone and they themselves will decide how to choose who to support.
Angalau nimetangaza kwamba nataka kuwania urais wa Kenya. Sisi watu wa mwelekeo mmoja, sisi watu ambao tunatafutana, kila mmoja wetu anasema kutakuwa na rais mmoja tu. Tutaendelea kujitafutia, lakini lazima tujenge nguzo mpaka wakati mmoja bila kuwekwa kwa rumu na kuelezwa mkitoka hapo mseme mmefuata huyu.
Speaker Justin Muturi urged the IEBC to prepare for the upcoming general elections to ensure that the elections are free and fair for all.
Ni vizuri tume ya IEBC yajibike. Tumewapitisha jana wale wanne ambao walikuwa wamebaki na tutakuwa tayari kuwapatia bajeti ambayo inafaa, inatosha, lakini ni lazima wahakikishie Wakenya through public participation and consultations with all the players, not just some players.
The country has enough food to take care of those in need of food aid for the next 1 month. Agriculture Ministry said the food prices will remain the same for at least 2 weeks. The ministry, however, has called on Treasury CS to allocate 670 million shillings, which will be used in helping personalists who have been affected by drought. Marsabit, Isiolo, Tana River, Wajir and Turkana have been hard hit by severe drought. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
All right, we're still having some traffic on Mombasa Road this morning, and looks like we'll be there for some time. Usual musings today as we're trying to get in and out of the city centre. Speaking of which, the city centre is already packed, coming in from all sides. Kamkunji from Landis Road is not too bad this morning. It's actually flowing quite smoothly without too much of a headache. Coming off Langata Road at the aerodrome right there also looks good as you join the roundabout at Bunyala. Getting through to then Haile Selassie Avenue, that should not be too bad this morning. It's building up on Gong Road, building up on Langata Road, and also on the Thika Superhighway has built up in the last hour, my goodness, all the way back to almost at Survey. Kiambu Road doesn't look good at all, guys. Jam-packed, and we're looking at 4 lanes already. Then coming off into the city, Limu Road, right around the village market is where we see some issues, but not too bad further ahead. We'll keep an eye on things. Help us out as well. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It's 5 minutes
the
after
only
7.
Way
Very
to
good
start.
morning to you, and thank you very much for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Who's that? Who's tuning in from Jamaica?
Jamaica, Leslyn granddaughter. Good morning from beautiful Jamaica.
Leslyn granddaughter.
Mm.
Wow.
Mm.
Whose granddaughter?
So-
Leslyn.
She's the granddaughter. Maybe the person who had the name was a granddaughter of somebody.
Okay.
Could be anything.
From beautiful Jamaica. Uh-huh.
And Evelyn Kavaya is tuned in as well from Riyadh. Tobile Dlamini is tuned in from Eswatini. And Alex Mukonda is tuned in from Sioma in Zambia.
Nice. Everybody, thank you very much for tuning in. City, today's elders, today's proverb.
Where there are elders, you don't pour water anyhowly.
Jeez.
Where there are elders, you don't pour water anyhowly.
In other words, where there are elders, there is order.
Okay. Where the elders, there is order. Where the elders, you behave.
Yourself.
Okay.
It's true.
It's true. You relate.
I behave myself in front of the elders.
You don't just pour water anyhowly. No. Okay.
If we're going to accept that that's a word.
It is.
Okay.
Huh?
Just like pour water. 2 words.
Anyhow.
Just pour water anyhowly.
So, this, the murder of the Kianjakoma brothers, right? So now those 6 officers who had been arrested and then arraigned in court, remember that their lawyers walked out because they wanted them to take a plea and they couldn't take a plea on etc. Now, there was more drama as the state-appointed lawyers also did what? They walked out. 6 police officers accused of killing 2 brothers in Kanjakoma village in Embu County were finally charged on a dramatic day in court when 6 lawyers walked out on them. Benson Puthia, Consolata Njeri, Martin Wanyama, Nicholas Sang, Lillian Cherono, and James Waniki could not believe when their attempts to block the charges flopped, with Justice Daniel Ogembo dismissing their final attempt to derail the plea taking. Again, they didn't want to take plea. They pleaded not guilty in the 2 counts of murder in which the prosecution alleged that they killed 22-year-old Benson Jiro Ndwiga and his 19-year-old brother Emmanuel Mutura Ndwiga on the night of August 1st at Kanjakoma village in Embu North sub-county. Drama started when the accused officers refused to give instructions to 6 lawyers who had been appointed by the court to represent them, arguing that they did not want to be represented by state-appointed counsel. lawyer Dunstan Omari, who on Tuesday withdrew from representing the accused alongside 9 other lawyers, then resurfaced with another set of 4 lawyers, claiming they had fresh instructions to represent them. It came as a surprise to the other parties as it prompted a back and forth argument, which led to the appointed 6 lawyers doing what? Walking out.
Wait, so lawyers are hired by the police officers.
Yes.
They come to court. Magistrate says no taking of plea. Lawyers say, come on, Nivo Basi. We walk.
State
Court
says,
appoints lawyers. They're in court.
they're in court. They are supposed to take plea. There's a back and forth. Defendants are saying to their lawyers, do not take plea. We are not taking a plea at some point. Lawyer said no, but we are we are supposed to do this now as according to the process.
Okay.
So there was a back and forth. Finally, take plea. Take plea, they said not guilty. Then after some point, they said no. Actually, these lawyers, we, as the accused 6, we don't want them because they've been appointed by the state. We want our own lawyers. You've been told this, but your lawyers that you had previously had already walked out. That is why we appointed, because we need to get this.
We need to move.
It's not happening. Then one of the lawyers who had been previously part of the 10 then resurfaces and says, actually, you know what?
I'm here.
And there's some 4 other people here with me. We can actually represent these people. So now, can we move on with this? He said, we spoke with the accused and reached an agreement on the way forward, only for them to call us back, asking why the government would appoint lawyers for them when they could afford their own. It is not tenable to act for them, and we are requesting to be discharged, which is one of the lawyers said.
Carry on.
To end the confusion, Justice Ogembo asked each of the accused to name the lawyer they wanted. Now, instead of all of this, you, Eric, who do you want? Charles, who do you want? Ndu, who do you want? Name the lawyer you want to represent you. As soon as the state-appointed lawyers left, now those guys are not wanted.
Yeah.
They've gone. Mr. Omari now brought a fresh application to stop the charges, arguing that the DPP did not follow the right procedure in approving the charges. So you see now, new lawyer said, all these things people have done, we want it thrown out because it was not following procedure. According to the lawyer, the DPP should have filed an application for a public inquest into the death of the 2 brothers instead of charging the 6. But Jacinta Nyamosi opposed the application, arguing that the accused had filed a similar application before the Constitutional Court, which was already dismissed.
Hey. By the way, there is also the subject of a bail application. An argument is that, people have been remanded. The ladies have been remanded at the women's prisons. The other gentlemen at the industrial court. Industrial prison. Remand. Prison.
Give them bail.
Yes, let them, Now, there's a trend that I'm seeing, and that's when I had that eureka moment, that light bulb moment, it was because on the same page in the Star, rather on the same spread, remember there was a gentleman who worked for KERA, the Kenya Rural Roads Authorities, the Coast Regional Manager, a gentleman by the name of Benson Musila. Remember, he had been accused, and by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, they wanted to, take over some of his property. Said the acquisition of this property was suspect. Now, he has come back, gone to court, and brought documentation
to prove.
And it is not small documentation, it's piles and piles and piles of it to prove that actually he acquired whatever he acquired correctly.
We're talking about how many million shillings here?
First of all, there are 27 properties. No, it isn't millions. It is billions.
Yeah?
It is, yes.
It's in billions.
Yes. And the argument that caught my attention says the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has not tabled evidence from an individual contractor or company which he is alleged to have received bribes or kickbacks and awards from. And I'm thinking, I see.
Yeah. Don't just come to court anyhowly. Come with evidence. You can't come and accuse me anyhowly. You must come with evidence.
Our courts, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the DPP have their work cut out for them.
This story it's in today's paper again. It was in actually we
Even yesterday's
it was
paper.
in yesterday's paper.
Even the
Standard,
day before
yeah?
it was there.
Hey,
And there were pictures
it was
of the
very-
piles of evidence that he had brought.
Very interesting. 300 documents.
Yes.
To defend his case. The voluminous documents filed in court signaled his intention to go flat out to defend his flats.
Pun intended, of course.
He says, the EACC ambushed me and did not give us a chance to provide all the documentation to prove that all our assets were legally acquired. We had agreed on a timeline to supply all evidence. But these guys, EACC, they instead rushed to court to freeze my properties. Psh. According to him, he satisfactorily explained the sources of his wealth and provided financial statements of his companies, but the commission, out of which Hunt decided to take the matter to court. He says the documents would serve as exhibits to court and disprove claims by the EACC that he cannot prove the source of his wealth. It's not much. It's just a few properties here and there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a few.
In the suit filed by the EACC against the Kera regional manager for Coast Region, they were seeking to have him forfeit several apartments in Nairobi, a private school, and 30 other assets, including land in Nairobi, in Makueni, and in Kilifi, allegedly acquired through proceeds of crime. According to the commission, Masila engaged in schemes to conceal the illicit assets in family members' names, businesses, fronts, and corporate entities in an effort to distance the assets from their illegitimate source. So they have sued Musila's wife, Zipporah Mongeli. They have sued Mumbe Junior Academy Limited, Mumbe Boys High School Limited, Mumbe Girls High School Limited, Mumbe Hardware and Supplies Limited, and Sky Kenya Limited. In total, the EACC claims the roads engineer, his wife, and the company's accumulated assets in properties, banks and mobile money and M-Pesa deposits, vehicles, listed shares, and insurance policies totaling, how much is this? 1.19 billion shillings.
Chai.
1.19 billion. But you can prove it. That's why, you see, for 1.19 billion shillings, you come with various documents.
Of course.
This is this is the other, this is the other. Just if they end up being 300 documents, don't blame the man.
He brought the evidence.
Yeah.
Now go through it.
You go through it.
Speaking of going through the ringers, legislators are seeking tighter laws on gaming and betting programs. We saw a story the other day of a young man who his older brother had given him money to pay the bills and such, to sort out issues up country. So he then decided to take this money and bet on the UEFA finals. And he thought that he was actually going to do, a good thing. So he split the money in two, and he bet 40,000 shillings on one outcome, and he bet 40,000 shillings on another, because he had already done his calculations. And he said, whatever the case, if Germany were to win, he would make some money. If the other team were to win, he would also make some money. So whatever
it was
the case,
win-win.
It was win-win.
Right.
Never in his wildest dreams
Did he
had
imagine
he
that a third team
imagined
could
that
win?
there would be a draw.
Oh.
Okay?
Right.
And that is exactly
So
what
no winner.
No winner. All the money did what? What did he then do? He went with the remaining 20 shillings that he had from the 80,000. The 20 shillings that he had, he bought a rope. And he wrote a suicide note. And he hanged himself.
What?
Because he did not know how he was going to go and tell his parents that the money his older brother sent for upkeep of paying and the buying food for the month and everything, he had bet it all. Today, legislators are seeking for tighter laws on gaming and betting programs, and they are saying that we need to protect unsuspecting Kenyans, especially children. The committee, which is the Information and Communication and Innovation Committee chaired by Marakwet West MP William Kisang, wants to introduce amendments to the Gaming Bill 2019. The committee said that after engagements with several stakeholders involving regulating the betting and gaming industry, their memo will inform the amendments. The bill passed the second reading yesterday and is now before the committee of the whole House. The lawmakers summoned the CAK and the Betting Control and Licensing Board to shed light on why there is a rise in the number of operators. One, they also want to find out the process of issuance of licenses by the BCLB. The committee also questioned the board about policies and guidelines that they have developed to regulate the media in carrying out betting. Officials explained that in accordance with the programming code for broadcast services, media houses, and that air third-party content are free to air gaming-related programming either as an advertisement or a competition. So, the many things that they want to curb here. How you get your licenses, how we're going to protect people, what happens with people's winnings and such. They say that they have the potential to harm the public if not properly regulated, especially children.
So what do they want to do then? So what are those regulations? What do they... They are seeking to regulate...
They're seeking for
the
tighter
regulation
laws.
of regulations of the regulations.
So the laws that currently exist, they argue, are not tight enough.
Are not tight enough.
Are not tight enough.
And how do you determine when a law is tight enough?
When there are fewer incidents of looseness.
You know, this push to legislate everything and to have a law that can directly relate to every issue that we have, at some level, it's a good thing. It's a good thing that we are legislating. It's a good thing that you have a fallback plan and it's the legislation. But I would ask the question, why did this young man seek to gamble this money to begin with? Let's forget the existence of the Gaming Commission.
Why did he? Because he thought he would make a profit. He knew he was going to make some extra.
What was in his mind?
There was a windfall.
Money.
Extra, yeah.
What did he need the money for?
And already there was money.
This money has been sent by his brother for the family's upkeep.
Yes.
So why does he need money?
He wanted some extra in his own
for
pocket
himself.
that nobody was going to regulate how you're going to use it, right? It was for himself. You see? So he could do his other things on the side. It was not for want of food or clothing or shelter.
You know,
it was extra for him.
This story, if you remember, when Sports Pesa was at its peak, one heard of many such stories, not of deaths, but one heard of, it was in relation to some of these apps that lend money and the upsurge in the usage of them, and they were directly tied to what people refer to as betting. One heard of cases of harm that people had caused themselves as a result of losses and so forth. However, if you look at the cases that we are having, and if you look at the surge in people engaging in this business, the question that I'm asking now is a question I asked then. Are you asking yourself why it is that so many people are engaged in this? And why it is that they keep borrowing money for this purpose? If all people did was lose money, you wouldn't have those numbers. After a while, they would stop. They realize this is a zero-sum game. But part of the reason why they go is because they do win sometimes. And whatever needs they have, they do. Now, so what is the regulation going to do? Stop them? Make it stricter. Okay, now, making it stricter, what will you do?
What does that mean, making it stricter?
Make it stricter. What are you going to do?
That you can't spend 200 shillings if you have 200 shillings.
Yes. What are you going to do? Okay. And how do you go about
that
this?
You're going to block the information from reaching people during a certain time.
Yes.
And assuming that after a certain period, they will not be able to access this information.
Yes. Or are you going to reduce the number of companies that are engaged in this business?
Which is one thing, actually, where they said that there's so many coming in. How are you making sure that all of them who are coming in actually meet the standards? So that's actually
the number is not an issue.
Yes.
You have a regulator.
There is a regulator.
There's a betting control and licensing board.
Which is why they summoned the BCLB to ask them, under which requirements are you allowing these people to come in? Are you just licensing everybody in the door? Open the door and any comes in the door. That's what they're asking. Because there are so many. That's why they summoned them to say, now tell us exactly how this is happening.
But I don't even understand the problem with
happening,
legislators.
If the way that this is happening, then maybe we need to tighten it.
Tightening it means reduce the numbers that you.
No, not necessarily.
One of them. One of the issues is limit the number of licensed betting companies in the country. How does that address the problem? who said that BCLB is unable to manage the ones that it has registered.
That's why they call them to ask them how they do it now.
And secondly, if you want to go that route, okay, then we're talking about industries or businesses that cause harm. You want to list them out? Let's start with those who produce alcohol. Okay, proven, tested, known, direct harm, known. It's not something that there's no quibbling about it.
Cigarette manufacturers.
Precisely. Take your pick.
So what do you think the issue is then?
What?
Well,
These guys
as I hear you, CT, you're not comfortable with overregulation. You think regulation is not addressing the main issue.
No, I feel that these fellows who keep raising voices when you hear somebody has died, somebody has hanged themselves, these are people who lost direction a long time ago, okay?
Who are the people who hang themselves?
No, these
Or the ones
legislators.
who are calling
They lost direction a long time ago. So anytime they can latch onto something that makes them show that they have an interest in
they understand
the
what's happening in the
Mwananchi,
country.
okay?
They've got
They
the
throw
finger on the
legislation.
pulse.
Yes, they think of
Throw legislation at it.
Yes, no. We are going to curb this thing. We are not going to put up with this thing. It is harming our youth. We are going to, and you're thinking
it's a general mentality of government.
Yes.
But these are the big stories. Do you know how many people take the money that they should be, sorting their families out with and go and bet it and lose it, and then their families are left with nothing to eat?
Yeah.
Children cannot go to school. It's a big issue. It didn't start with this young man. By the way, this story was in the paper it was on Monday, I believe. It didn't start with him.
And it won't end with him.
Yeah. And he took 80,000 bob. There are people who are taking their 1,000 shillings that they have to eat for that day and are betting it, losing it. Yeah, you know how they say the house always wins? In majority of cases, the house is winning and people are losing out on their daily livelihoods.
Well, truth be told, we had seen a proliferation of these slot machines everywhere in the country.
Yes.
Remember there was a time when there was a crackdown by Ngao officers.
Yes.
Going and just finding those machines and just grabbing them. And you're wondering, how on earth did they get there? This is some small town somewhere, and in some pub, there are machines, and people are going to bet.
Pub. Eric,
yes.
I went for a funeral in Western Kenya.
Funeral,
long before COVID.
Okay.
During that period, funeral. Yeah. And we were waiting for this friend of ours whose his son's mother-in-law had died.
Okay.
So we sat at this village shopping center, we're drinking tea. Lo and behold, there were slot machines. I actually looked and stared and said,
wonder of wonders.
Now, what I found interesting, because we sat there for close to an hour drinking tea. One of these lovely places where the mandazi is the size of your head. And
that's a big mandazi.
And it has meat inside. It's not those empty ones.
It's not those empty, as you call fluffy. Fluffy what? Empty. No, it has substance.
It has substance.
Yes.
Meaning
the sort of thing which if you eat with zeal, you'll be constipated for a month. Anyway, I divert. Then what happens? I observed, my friend and I were sitting there. Every 5 or so minutes, some motorbike guy would come in, and it was just, by the way, it was 20 bob. Put his 20 bob,
play.
Nothing. 20 bob, play, take off again. With them, I noticed, the same guys would keep coming back. So I decided, this machine has been played long enough. Let me put my 20 bob also and see. And I put 20 bob. It came. So, fortunately, none of the previous investors were there to watch this. So all these 20 bobs came out. So it paid for our tea. And the rest we gave the lovely people who had been serving us in that place.
How much did you win from 20 bob?
I didn't count.
But there were many coins.
No, there were many coins. I asked the person to count them and said, does it enough to pay for this tea? Yes, the rest you guys can keep. They couldn't believe it. And we were telling them to keep. But I only put 20 bob. Now, why am I telling you this story? This is a dusty little village town. Not very far from the main road. And I'm thinking, there's slot machines in this place. I'm
this
sure
thing, it had gotten to a point where even Matiang'i was talking about it and saying, no, we've got to crack down on this. Because one, they are not regulated by BCLB. They're just coming in.
Yes.
and they're all over. Now, those ones you can deal with like that.
Yes.
You know, you've come in, you're running a business, it's not licensed, it's not regulated. Fine.
Yes.
But the others that are regulated is what the legislators want to overregulate. They want to add another layer of regulation on
Yes.
top of this layer of regulation.
Yes.
But the question they're not asking themselves is that question that you said. Why is this Nduthi guy coming?
Yes.
After every trip, he makes 100 bob, he comes and puts 20 bob.
40 actually. Puts
40.
doesn't go, then he says, okay, he goes off
He
again.
goes again.
Comes back.
Carries another passenger.
Comes
makes
back.
money. Comes
You know
and
what,
brings
for
the
an hour, so you could actually see the pattern. And that's why I knew this thing hasn't been paying. Maybe it's right for pay. It was actually quite fascinating. But it means that machine at some point had paid this fellow.
Yes.
There was the anticipation that at some point it will pay. The good thing is we left and we didn't come back. I'm sure they were told, but all that money you're putting in there.
No, these visitors
Those
who
two
came.
gentlemen, those two Aziz who were sitting here, they're the ones who want your money.
I know they can hear you this morning. They're like, Kumba, wewe ndio uli."
You see, the point is that
They'll just say hi, Suru.
the reason why those
they want.
the reason why those businesses thrive wherever they are, among the things they do is key. They pay the government taxes.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the regulation is important. Okay, and a fairly hefty amount too. They also employ really very many people.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it is a business, just like any other business that you may have. It's a business. Now, are we saying you can legislate behavior?
It's difficult. You
That's
can't.
the issue is.
You
Yes.
can't.
We have an entire chapter of our constitution that deals with that. And how are we doing on that front?
Not really well.
We're not doing.
We're not doing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So instead of featuring and focusing on the consequences, on the manifestations of the problem, ask yourself the simple question: why do we see this proliferation? What is it that is bringing this about? You know, we've had Kenyan charity sweepstakes for the longest time, and we've had other charity sweepstakes that also exist. I see them on TV. Bomba, Lotto, I see them. Nobody ever talks about this. Do you think they're any different from the others? They are not.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. The 20 shillings that you're talking about, the 50 shillings that you're talking about, try your luck because you want a
Scratch
little
and win.
more. Yeah,
Yes,
try your luck.
It's the same principle. Now, once you've understood it's the same principle, then you ask yourself the very fundamental question on the balance of things. How useful is this industry to us? Because it has to be on the balance. And rushing to legislate adversely on everything because someone has died, then we should legislate against driving cars, because the number of people who die in our roads as a result of accidents or faulty cars are really very many.
It is that, like I'm saying, it's a mentality of government. Okay? You're a nuisance. You're a nuisance. So we hear noise, we clamp down on it so that people can stop making noise. You're not looking back at what is it that is making people go to bed. What is it? What's driving people to do this? Address those root causes. Why are people throwing trash wherever they're throwing trash? Address that issue. Why are people parking in the CBD in such high numbers? Address the issue. Don't just come and say, start paying 4 times what you've been paying in the CBD because this is prime property. No.
Why do people have to write on walls, do not urinate here? Why? Do you have facilities where somebody can actually go for what we call a short call at a convenience or at a central place? Remember, we even had smokers' corner in this country where smoking was banned. So you knew if you want to smoke, you go
There's
there.
a place you go.
Now, if someone is caught smoking in the streets, there's a reason. If you've ever been to Singapore, my friend, people walk around.
They walk around with little garbage bags.
They do. They do.
Do you know what the fine for littering in Singapore is? It's 18 lashes. They don't even say, caught. It's 18 lashes of the cane. You
But
litter
at the same time,
chewing gum.
you will look in a span of...
And there are garbage bins.
Exactly.
That's why they legislate.
I am carrying this because I know in the next 50 steps I take, 100
I will
steps
be able
I
to
take,
deposit.
I will deposit it somewhere. In this
Exactly.
city of Nairobi, where are garbage pit and it's dustbins?
And
We don't have. How many
and they keep
public
saying-
toilets do we have?
Eric, remember when we had this discussion with people who are in charge? They said, people keep taking this thing. Why must they be made of metal?
They can be made of anything.
Yes.
Go and make sure that they're not being stolen. You can't tell us that Because people are going to steal. So should we stop paying taxes because our taxes are being stolen?
If you take that.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. 87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 15, highs of 22 and lows of 13 today. Partly sunny in Nakuru at 15, highs of 24 and lows of 14. It's raining in Nyeri at 14, highs of 21. We'll see lows of 13. Looking out into Kisumu this morning. Light rain in some parts, but it'll go then to highs of 29 and lows of 18. In Kakamega, it's also raining at 23, highs of 28 and lows of 23 today. Mombasa this morning is raining at 23 with highs of 28. Malindi at 26 is sunny, highs of 29 and lows of 25. Looking out into Kampala, it's 21 degrees and mostly cloudy, highs of 25 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam is raining as well at 23. We'll see highs of 30 and lows of 21. Out in Lagos, it's raining as well at 25. It'll go to highs of 29, and Kinshasa is mostly cloudy with highs of 29. It'll come down to lows of 22.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Okay, so yes, a mishmash of traffic right in the middle of the city centre. Ngong Road is also building up with traffic this morning. Let's look at Langata Road, where it's all the way from the junction of the bypass headed into the city, very slow moving this morning. Jogo Road and getting out onto Landis is packed. However, getting onto in Landis to Kamkunji, not too bad this morning. Into the city centre, of course, all roads lead there, so it's quite messy this morning. Industrial area, Lunga out to Likoni. And then joining with the Likoni interchange this morning also looks quite bad. Mombasa Road, yes, still continues to be that thing. Moving very slowly on one lane inbound. We'll have that traffic for a while. So if you've not gotten onto it yet, you might want to wait out a bit. And if you're there, it's going to need some patience this morning. On the Thika Superhighway, that's also some traffic all the way back to Survey. Let's look out of the city. Coming inbound Kisumu, inbound Nakuru, inbound west, generally not too much, and doesn't look bad at all. And looking out in Mombasa, 3 ferries up for service this morning, star 712 hash. That's how you pay a ferry toll, not via cash. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Get in touch with us through the day. Text on 40127.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Joseph says, the problem with us is that we forget until another youth takes away his or her life because of betting. And that's when we wake up again against the betting. A few days later, we sleep and we forget about it until many days later. This is what happens left, right, and center throughout, right? Cases of betting and all. Well, there's a story that's on page 23 of The Nation today, and it's quite bizarre. Villages of the bizarre, Nakuru's hotspots of murder and suicide. Something sinister is brewing across villages in Kuresoi and Molo, but residents don't know what it is. They just know it's evil. From the macabre murders to shocking suicides, rape, defilements and incest, villages in Elbagon in Molo, Olenguruone in Kuresoi South and parts of Kuresoi North are becoming dens of horror. Since 2018, at least 13 children have taken their own lives amid pained questions over what could have provoked them to take such drastic action. It goes to start listing cases. One suicide in 2018 shocked the country when Nehemiah Muluka, a 15-year-old Standard 6 pupil at Sulguita Primary School in Molo, committed suicide in his parents' house and left a note asking his family to cook chapati for his friends and mourners who would attend his burial. In another shocking incident, residents of Olenguruone on Monday woke up to the news that a man had stabbed a Form 4 student to death over an alleged affair with his wife. The 19-year-old secondary school student was killed in Saptet village. Haya, tuendelee na story. Kuresoi Divisional Criminal Investigations Officer Peter Obonyo said the man had returned to his house at midnight on Sunday, found the teen in bed with his wife, and that's when this stabbing happened. July 25th, Constable David Kurgat, who was attached to Kiptagich Police Station in Kuresoi South, was found dead 10 meters from his girlfriend, Lucy Chepkorir's house in Olenguruone town. The woman was arrested, but she was later released after it emerged that the officer died of a heart attack and was not poisoned as early suspected. That was July 25th. July 31st, a middle-aged man in Tinet, Kuresoi South, stabbed his wife and her lover to death using a sword. Tinet Chief David Busiane said the man had found the two on his matrimonial bed. Wife and her lover. After the killings, the man drank the blood of his victims and surrendered to Keringet Police Station in an incident that left residents in shock. That is July 31st. April 26, shock gripped Seguton Trading Center in Kuresoi North following the murder of a 12-year-old boy. The body of the grade 3 pupil was found in a cypress tree plantation barely 100 meters from a road. Seguton Chief Johnston Towet told the nation that the body was found by passers-by. It had strangulation marks. Preliminary investigations indicated the child had been sexually abused before being killed. Residents, angered by the murder, lit fires and barricaded the Molo Olenguruone road for more than 6 hours. That incident came barely a day after a 21-year-old woman stabbed her husband to death in Mau Summit in Kuresoi North before fleeing. In both cases, police are yet to arrest any suspects. The number of suicides reported in Elbagon, Molo, Kuresoi South and Kuresoi North in the past 8 months is alarming. At least 20 of them died in suicides and homicides. The most recent was on the 15th of May when a man's body was found dangling from the ceiling of his house in Tayari, Molo. He had a rope around his neck, and Molo Sub-County Police Boss Samuel Mukusi said the married man had been reported missing before his decomposing body was discovered in this particular house. February 26th, a 17-year-old Form 3 student at Elbagon DEB Secondary School committed suicide in her parents' house under unclear circumstances. In yet another incident, February 6th, a woman identified as Beth Wangoi threw herself, her 9-year-old daughter, and her 3-year-old son into Kameridu Dam. Local leaders have attributed the cases to family conflicts due to infidelity, drug and alcohol abuse, money-related stress, and disintegration of families.
My goodness.
All those are within Molo, Olenguruone, Kuresoi North, Kuresoi South.
Let me suggest a perspective.
Right.
When people talk of trauma, they use the word trauma. It's often used when referring to perhaps injury or referring to some extreme form of shock that someone has experienced as a result of something adverse that has happened to them. But what perhaps is not discussed adequately are the consequences of traumatic situations that persist over a long period of time. That area that you've mentioned has been an area that was known for conflict since 1992. They were called tribal clashes, they were called the other, they were called the other. I have met people who were children when some of these atrocities and problems occurred, and it's in adult life that they can actually look back and say, you know, this problem that I have started because this is what happened. Prior to this occurrence, I didn't have any such problem. They say that children who are born in relationships where there is violence themselves tend to be violent when they are old enough to have relationships of their own. Now, here I'm referring to consequences. You cannot downplay or you cannot understate the very, very negative effects of those negative experiences over a long period of time. You may think you understand it, but it affects somebody to the core, and you then find a pattern of errant behavior, and you wonder, but why is it that we find this only happening in this particular area? You will hear, for instance, of crime, and you will be told many slum dwellers or slum areas are prone to crime. But if you look intently, you'll find that is not a statement of truth. Within those so-called slum dwellings, there are specific areas that are prone to crime. And you'll find that those who are young are introduced to crime as a way of life. Why? Because the people they look up to who are older than them are engaged in crime.
Yeah.
And so they figure, this, I don't even think they sit and think about it. It's something they gravitate towards very, very easily.
Well, I mean, because it's what you see around you, then it becomes easy to gravitate thus. It just makes sense that if you are brought up seeing that around you, you see it every day. It's conditioning. It's a natural inclination that if you see this happening, if you see drugs all around you, that's likely what you're going to.
The consequence will hit you when you're older and you understand it better.
Yeah.
I remember, research makes you understand things that you could never have thought you'd understand. You know why? Because research seeks to respond to a question. You want to answer a question. Why is this the way it is? I remember some work that we're doing in the eastern part of this city among young people. It was a sexual health study. And in the course of talking to young people, I went to the areas where some of our respondents came from, and I visited them, and there's something I saw. And the discussion that I had with them opened my eyes. And this was around 15, 16 years ago. No, yes, going to 20. It opened my eyes to something that I had never known before. And they explained to me, because they were both young men and women. And they said, one of the things that people don't understand, for instance, this place where we come from, you'll find that a young girl goes to school. When she leaves school in the evening, the father, say, owns a kiosk. She's the one who will be selling at the kiosk. And said, there's something peculiar. The prettier the girl, the more she'll be given the duties. And the reason is because she's a pretty girl, people will leave her tips. Nobody questions where the tips come from. And I asked them to repeat what they just said. They said, let's take this thing further. Said, you see this group of young men here, okay? We have young women who are our girlfriends, but we know very well that they're in the sex trade. I said, you do? Said, explain. Said, well, we provide protection. I said, what do you mean? And they explained it to me. He said, when you find a pretty girl somewhere or the group of friends having a drink and having a good time, said, what you don't understand is that before you go out, you don't just dress. It is planned, it is worked at, so but you're properly attired, and you're not alone. You are with a friend of yours or two. I said, what you don't know is there's some of us also in the background sitting somewhere. That's the security. I said, to what end? He said, we understand that they will earn a living, and we share some of it. He said, and the worst thing is our parents don't ask questions as to where this money comes from. He said, now, this girl is probably 19, 20. If they have younger sisters, and we have younger brothers, and they see this older person dressing nicely, always seems to have money, what do you think they are going to look forward to? They'll be introduced to this way of life because they're too young to fully understand the import of it. And it really got my mind thinking, because I remember visiting a house. One of the gentlemen who was a peer leader took me to a house that belonged to his aunt. In the field next to it were people drinking. And it was clearly illicit brew. Now, when I saw a police car drive by and stop, I knew, okay.
This
is it.
I know, in my mind, I said, okay. No one moved. They just continued drinking. One police gentleman got out of the car, went and spoke to somebody, went off. Then the same police car, I don't know where it went. Next thing, it came to the auntie's house. Now, I said, okay. We were sitting outside. I said, we have a problem
Now
here.
it's a bad thing, yeah.
Because the auntie traded in Bangi. Okay? And I said, again, nobody moved. I am the one who was getting shocked.
Jittery.
I know, I was getting really jittery.
Yeah.
But I was introduced to something that I had never experienced, didn't know. But it got me thinking on how it is that some of these things that people consider antisocial or people consider, for many people, it's just a way of life. It's you who thinks it is odd. But if somebody belongs to that community, that isn't considered odd. Odd is someone doing something different. So now, do you know what that means? People read of stories about slums in some of the Western world, and you think it's a big thing when somebody leaves that particular low-rent area and makes something of themselves. It's not that they can't. It's that the prevailing culture is something very easy to get involved in, and you earn a living, and it's a way of life for you, and you don't think beyond it. Now, think of the same effect when what you've experienced from a very young age is violence or some really adverse occurrences.
Where death is nothing.
Yes, you've got it. That's what forms the basis
You
of your
just
thinking.
kill
and the way you go
someone,
about
you
life.
see someone dying, you know, see some
How
house
is that
being
an issue?
torched.
No biggie.
No, it isn't. So when we talk about the mental health, say for instance of our security forces, it is not something to take lightly. Some of these things that we keep, like the Kianja 6, what do you think ended up? What do you think brought these 6 people to the point where the death of 2 young people can be considered to be almost inconsequential? How do you think they got there?
But it
'Cause
doesn't matter,
they didn't start there.
It didn't start there. And then not only when you're looking at those activities, but in the thinking is that, all right, in the line of whatever it is we were doing, 2 people lost their lives. It's not a matter of now let's start laying blame or start asking questions about what happened. That in their minds, possibly, and I'm saying possibly, because of whatever conditioning may have taken place before, that you then see it's as a normal occurrence that in the line of duty, these things are going to happen. But then what it is also is that in that thinking, you then expect that everybody else will then be accepting of that way of thinking. And that's where the problem is. That you're so far gone that you also believe that everybody else ought to think in the same manner.
You remember when we lost some a fair number of senior political leaders in this country to cancer? It was highlighted by the death of Dr. Joyce Laboso.
Yes.
Do you remember the discussions and the talk and the push around cancer? Right now, as we speak, do you even remember there was such a discussion? Is there anything that has happened significant that can look back and say, you know something?
Since that time, there's been significant movement.
Yes. Because cancer is on the increase, by the way, not on the decrease. It's on the increase. There's some counties where non-communicable disease are a serious issue. They know it's a serious issue. Do you hear of it? Now, are we waiting for it to get to pandemic status where now it is beyond us?
Yes.
For us to start doing something about it. And by that time, what will we be doing about it? When the banks of a river are overrun and it is flooded, what can you do? You can't rain in water that has flooded. What do you do?
But then it's already done, my friend.
Yes.
It's an interesting perspective that you've brought in here because we are actually talking about a specific area. 2007 post-election violence saw a lot of violence in this particular area. We're talking about Molo, Olenguroni, Kuresoi South, Kuresoi North.
In 97, there were issues. In 92,
92
there were issues.
Same place.
Same place. It's a recurrence.
There are children who are committing suicide today. So you can say those children did not really witness 97 or 92.
No.
Maybe they witnessed 207. There are adults who are just committing murder, just like, it's an easy thing. It's one of those things that you just disagree with somebody.
Violence begets violence.
Kill them.
Yes.
So this is just what has been reported in this one story, and it's covering a period of 8 months.
Yes.
Now, if we were to look back, maybe in the period of 20 years, last 20 years, in this region, you may find,
You'd be shocked. You would be shocked. And it's a pattern that you can see. It is something you can understand.
And as you say that, you're saying and this is the thing, you would be shocked as somebody who was on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
But if it was something that shocked the people who were in this area, don't you think we would have heard about it a lot more? So, because it's a way of life, it's almost as though it is a way of life. That, you
become numb to it.
Yeah, you become completely numb to it. That you deal with an issue by taking a life.
There's a simple social construct that people deal with and isn't often talked about in African society. It's called polygamy. Okay? it over time, with the advent of Christianity, many people have shunned it. Okay. But have they really? No, they haven't. What they've done is found alternatives to it. As in, you have a wife, acceptable, and then you have what we Kenyans call ampango wakando, an alternate plan. Okay. Now, there are communities where nobody frowns upon you marrying a second or third wife. It's not an issue.
It's even encouraged.
Precisely. Now, anyone growing up in this particular society will not find it odd
that somebody's
third
wife.
No, they will not.
Or your children
they,
of a third
they
wife.
will not find it odd whatsoever. Yet, I'm juxtaposing it to somebody who comes from the West, where monogamy is this issue of polygamy. That is, it's so no.
It's barbaric almost.
Yes, but they prefer serial monogamy, meaning marry, leave, marry another one, leave,
Yes,
marry,
yes.
like that. Yes. Now,
This fellow is saying, let's just do it all at the same time.
I have found that social construct instructive in understanding how human beings function. And how it is, you cannot, I mean the word acclimatize here, but you can easily be cocooned into a way of thinking because that is what is the norm.
Yeah. And then it becomes absurd when you go to or are faced with an alternate reality. It's absurd to you. Like, okay, what are you making noise
It's a
about?
proverb of the day before yesterday.
Yes.
You know, those who haven't traveled think their mother is the best cook. You're used to, this is the only way that food is prepared. Okay?
And you're used to it.
And you're used to it. And you think it's the best until you go and experience
Something else.
something else.
Look,
and you're taken
you're
aback.
thinking goodness.
Some of it you take, some others
So
you're
you
like,
dismiss.
there's no way. How
Like-
how is it that people are eating the intestines of something?
Yes, and some people are saying it's a delicacy.
Yeah.
Look at the lazy thinking of our legislatures. Instead of looking at the root cause of a problem, you want to throw a law at it. It's become the norm. Just like right now, you observe, in cases before when you had a case of corruption, there would be noise, silence. But now, people aren't sitting back. You accuse them of corruption, they bring you 300 documents to prove that they are not
They're not corrupt.
Yes. There is no keeping quiet. No. It is mine, I own it, and I can prove to you. Meaning, we've gone full circle, and people are now saying, yes, so what? And the so what is preceded by, what on earth do you think you are going to do?
Yeah.
There's nothing you're going to do
It's
about
power
it.
of example.
Yes. Impunity has gone full circle.
Starts from so you've exposed my wealth.
Okay,
So you expose everybody else's.
Yes.
No, you even say
You didn't even get
you didn't
everything.
even get the whole picture. Now let me show you what else I really do have.
Now, what does that tell you?
It's gutsy at its best, isn't it? To say that, it doesn't really matter. You actually have got it wrong. So now let me paint the full picture for you.
You know, I'm glad it's gotten to that stage. You know why? When it gets to that stage, then it means if we're looking at it from an epidemiological perspective, the ailment has gone, it's full blown. And usually when it's full blown, it either kills you, or your body gets used to it and you find a way of dealing with it, or it disables you. But it doesn't leave you as you are. It never does. You will not be where you
You'll not
are
be the
before.
same.
No, you will not be the same. That is for sure.
Interesting perspective, that one.
Thank you.
It's a very interesting perspective. Something you can look at 3 minutes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's kind of along the same lines when we're dealing with now drugs and this 18-year-old battle with heroin addiction. Drugs have wasted people's lives, and we're getting to that place. I mean, there's a story of a young man here who talks about how he lost control. A young woman, she lost control, and heroin was her way of life for the longest time. The 18 years of her life that she has no account for. She doesn't know when she was in and out of school. She wasted her childhood, her dreams, and basically her body. She says she's now sober, but had she had a way of looking at life differently previously, perhaps she would not have gone into drugs. If she had understood that taking the first sniff of cocaine and heroin, she reached the point whereby she was not able to live without narcotics. Had she had any kind of guidance when she was younger, perhaps her life would be different. Now, the drugs led her into all sorts of things, prostitution, giving her body up to just anybody who came along. And she remembers at some time that she would even be refused payment for those that she prostituted herself to. Her story is not the only one. There are many, 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 many more stories of people who are into hard drugs. And she's talking about the process that needs patience, but that it is something that many more people in the country actually do need help with. Ties in along the same lines when we're looking at addictions, when we're looking at mental health and illness. And this here, heroin, the hard drugs. We're not talking about your run-of-the-mill thing. No, hard drugs that can actually hamper people's lives for good is a big issue.
It's a very big one. And remember when, even when you go to a point where the government set up an authority to deal with alcohol and substance abuse, addiction, it's because there's something that's happening.
Yeah.
But how much budgetary allocation do we see? What kind of leadership do we see coming out of NACADA? How much support is it getting from government itself? It's a government authority, yes. It's a national campaign against alcohol and drug abuse, blah, 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 yes. But really, when you go back down to the society and to the communities where this is rampant, NACADA does not even have enough budget to roll out programs to help those that are deep in this and they'd like to get out. All we do is, have communication here, communication there, get some prominent personalities onto the board of NACADA so they can come up with, messaging. But
after that, dead in the water.
Yeah. An attitude problem is what I say we have with our government. It treats everything like, okay, what's your problem though? There's a problem with drugs. Let's set up NACADA.
People are not listening. Okay, let's put a celebrity there.
Yes.
They listen to the
So
celebrity.
the problem of drugs, we set up NACADA.
Yeah, there's NACADA. Ask them why they're not doing their work. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. We expect to receive the first shipment of Johnson & Johnson vaccine this evening. Today's shipment will be part of the 4.16 million doses of various vaccines that will arrive in the country this September. Monday next week, another dose of Moderna vaccine given by the United States will arrive in the country, while in the next few weeks, another dose of Pfizer and Sinopharm is expected to arrive. Yesterday, 358,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine provided by the government of Canada through the COVAX facility arrived in the country. To date, 806,404 people have been vaccinated against COVID-19. As the conversation surrounding Deputy President William Ruto's security continues to be discussed, with calls that a law needs to be in place to regulate how many police officers a VIP should have, Deputy President William Ruto has criticized Interior CS Fred Matiang'i's statement that disclosed properties he owns, while acknowledging that 70% of the assets mentioned by Matiang'i are his, 30% weren't, including the ADC land that is marred with controversy.
Walisahau pia kuweka shares. Niko na shares 400,000 ya Safaricom. Wangeweka hiyo. Na pia wangeweka kama kuna askari pia wanalinda huko. Wangeongeza hiyo. Alafu wangemalizia waende wa bank wajue wako na pesa ngapi na iko loan kiasi gani. Si namna hiyo ndio kama mzuri. So wamejaribu, si mbaya, wamejaribu kufanya hiyo lifestyle audit.
More than 5,000 families from Taita Taveta County are a happy lot after the county government completed the Mwakimori water project. Taita Taveta Governor Granton Samboja says he will continue with water projects in the county so that Taita Taveta residents have adequate water supply.
Agenda kubwa ni kuhakikisha kadri na uwezo wetu sehemu mbalimbali za kaunti hii tumezipatia maji. Shida hii ya maji haikuanza 2017 ati wakati mlichagua Samboja. Ni shida tumekuwa nayo sehemu zingine kutoka tupate uhuru 1963-64, kwamba sehemu nyingi za kaunti hii zimekuwa na shida ya maji. Na ndilo swali nimekuwa nikijiuliza, ndio basi nikaamua lazima nitafute njia.
Police officers in Kabete, Kiambu County, are looking for a man accused of alleged murder. The man is suspected to have killed the other for allegedly having an affair with his ex-girlfriend. 33-year-old Joseph Mashira is reported to have assaulted John Tagay at Lois Kanini's home, where he was critically injured. Police say Mashira attacked Tagay after Kanini told him that he was her boyfriend. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
In the middle of traffic hour this Friday morning, a few minutes after 8 o'clock, and it's still building up on Gong Road. We see quite a lot of it on Langata Road as well. Getting into the city centre, we're looking at Kenyatta Avenue, Moy Avenue, Accra Road. My goodness, it's jam-packed in there. And this is all coming from the Thika Superhighway. It's coming from Gong Road. It's coming in from Landis at the Kamkunji roundabout right there. And a lot of traffic within the city centre. Also, we're looking at the Thika Superhighway. That does not look pretty at all, folks. Survey and beyond. Kiambu Road and beyond. In through the Pangani underpass into Ngara. Coming from Limuru Road as well. It's a Friday mishmash of traffic. It will continue. Mombasa Road as well is what we're looking at. Quite tight here, folks. Huru Highway all the way through to Westerns. In and outbound. That continues as well. Let's keep an eye on things, guys. Nothing too crazy at the moment, but can be expected this time on Friday morning. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Are you stuck somewhere? Are you finding a good route? Let us know so we can share. Text as well on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It's 5
the
minutes
only way
after
to
8.
start your
Kenya's
day.
biggest conversation. A very good morning to you and a happy Friday on this third day of September 2021. Welcome to the Situation Room's third hour. We are live on SpiceFM. We are live streaming the show on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. We are also live streaming the show on TV, KTN Home, for the next 1 hour. CT Muga has the day's proverb.
Where there are elders, you don't pour water anyhowly.
Where there are elders, you don't pour water
anyhowly.
Anyhowly. You know, when you say anyhowly, you have to do like this.
Anyhowly.
You don't pour water
Yes,
anyhowly.
you know.
Fua.
This way and that way.
And there was theirs there. Okay?
Okay.
Observe manners. Not reja. Not fua. So we've agreed anyhowly is a word.
Who has agreed?
We have agreed.
Kenyans.
It's Kenyanese.
Oh, Kenyans, okay. No problem.
Kenyans, we've agreed. That is a word. Don't just pour water anyhowly.
Okay. No, Allah.
Just like that. Fua.
And credit where it's due. The English language contributed to it somehow.
Yeah, some parts of that are English.
Yeah, the how is English, the Lee is ours.
Somehowly. So you talk about doing things 1-1.
Yes, that's howly.
Stop it.
You don't just do things at 1-1, you do them wholesale.
Yes. You know, it is not one of those at least situations.
You do things wholesale, not 1-1. Okay. No. So we're talking about COVID vaccines. We've heard in the news just now that we're expecting the first batch of Johnson & Johnson vaccines.
Tonight.
Tonight, okay. And yesterday we got the vaccines from Canada.
Yes.
It's not about the numbers. It's about the fact that vaccines came.
We got the vaccines. No, because the gun is there and one has to jump in.
Yes, you can clearly see this gun.
There's 459 and 389.
Yes.
Look,
Okay.
the vaccines arrived.
That's the point.
Okay?
Okay.
Yes.
The number is not important.
The number is more than half of what was stated. Okay?
We're doing pretty well.
We're okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're all right.
What about the others? Which others?
Which others? The official figure that we've given you is the one we've given you.
And so go with that one.
Yes.
What about the reporting error? Okay. Have the people who gave us the vaccines complained about the vaccine and the numbers? No.
So what's your problem?
Surely a mistake can be made in counting. Right?
In counting, okay, a mistake can be made between 459 and 389.
It is very easy because there's some reports that even tell you it is 358. So,
okay, all right.
Once you have three conflicting numbers, the problem
is reporting.
Yes, it's reporting.
I
So
told you.
Focus.
Focus on are you talking about gross or net? VAT or without?
We're talking about vaccines.
Yeah. So are you doing vaccine plus 16% or vaccine minus 16%?
Okay, these are questions that must be asked in order for us to determine what we are, where we are. Okay, it's okay.
And by the way, the vaccines came at JKI, not Wilson. JKI, not Embakasi. JKI.
Received publicly.
Yes.
By, among others, the Canadian High Commissioner to Kenya.
Full glare.
So,
these many questions that you're asking.
Politicizing everything.
I didn't ask any questions.
What you do, wait for another batch of vaccines to arrive.
Then I
okay?
can
If there's a similar problem again, then
Inspector Clouseau.
then we can say perhaps really it isn't a counting error. But before the other vaccines come in, when the others came in, did we not see the same numbers that were reported, the same numbers which were put in storage? I mean, there was a little anomaly at some point about the full contingent being utilized, but did we not have vaccines? We did. Okay. So let's focus on what's important.
That's the point.
Yes.
So as you talk about vaccine rollout and these ones that are coming in, so there are donations that are coming in through the various countries, through various programs, and then there's what the government itself has procured, right, through our own budgets. There's a new angle that has been introduced, and it was announced by the Health Cabinet Secretary Muthui the other day. Citizens are also helping the government to procure COVID-19 vaccines. And by citizen, I mean corporate citizens. The Kenya Private Sector Alliance, the umbrella of the private sector, is coordinating with their membership so that people can contribute money to get vaccines purchased by the government, to get vaccines distributed, and vaccination conducted by government, but to the membership of the Private Sector Alliance. KEPSA itself released a statement which was signed by the CEO, Karo Kariuki, the other day, and where they were saying that 263 companies have already registered and committed their payments towards this effort. This initiative is open to all private sector companies. We thank all those that have participated in the first phase, including business associations such as the British Chamber of Commerce Kenya, Kenya Flower Council, the European Business Council, the Agriculture Sector Network, the Kenya Health Care Federation, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and many more who've mobilized their members in earnest to participate in the initiative. So what is this initiative? They have partnered with the government through the Ministry of Health in a bid to support the government in shouldering the burden of vaccinating Kenyans. They'll accelerate the pace of vaccinations and get us closer to herd immunity by the end of this year and get the economy to rebuild back better. KEPSA is coordinating the private sector to raise funds and work through the government to increase the number of vaccines in the country and vaccinate the employees, families, and parts of the community as the government reaches the rest of the public. Okay? There are many questions that maybe we could ask, but let's bring in Karo Kariuki, the CEO of KEPSA, who joins us on the line. Good morning, Karo.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us on the line. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Karibu, asante sana.
Now, that statement, Karo, has a number of issues that are emerging here. First, that KEPSA is working with the government, and the government has agreed because the Health CS already announced this, working with the government to support the government in shouldering the burden of vaccinating Kenyans. So, through KEPSA, companies are contributing money to purchase vaccines.
Yes.
And you've said 263 companies have already registered and committed their payments towards this effort. How much are you charging? Okay, so how much are people contributing? Let me not use the word are you charging. How much are you contributing per person?
Yeah. So when we discussed with the government and we asked them how much are they paying for each vaccine for the J&J
Okay.
to get the vaccine from source to people's arm, they said it's $10 per vaccine.
Okay.
And so that's what people who are in this initiative, people who are contributing into this initiative are paying per vaccine. So it's $10 per vaccine, and that includes everything from source, the whole transportation, the whole logistics, until it gets to your arm.
And this is the Johnson & Johnson single shot.
Johnson, yes. And which is what is more popular, because then you're not thinking about counting 12 weeks and wait for the next one. And so it's a cheaper one. But the caveat is if the sources are not as available, as we continue with this initiative and we get other vaccines, then we'll get it to other vaccines. But for now, we're working with Johnson & Johnson.
So Carol, thank you again. How exactly is this going to work? If you could break it down for us. I mean, I understand, yes, it's a consortium coming together, but the logistics in terms of how it will happen, and then who will this be available to?
Okay, so the way we're doing it, we just said, government gave statistics of what it will take to vaccinate about 30% of the population, and they'd broken it down into sections and said it will take until 2023. And so we sat down as the private sector and said, 2023 is a bit far off, and we're suffering. I mean, businesses are suffering, the economy is suffering, Kenyans are suffering. How can we help? And so, and as the government tries all ends to get donations to procure what they can procure with the taxes they have, how can we help? And so, and the government was very clear. Private sector is not going to be allowed to import and start selling vaccines. I think we all are suffering from COVID millionaires. And so we said we don't want to go that way. And this government is very clear on what they're going to do. And again, even sources out there globally, no one is going to sell to private sector right now. I mean, the government procurement around the world, the chain is so long. So by the time they get to you even as private sector, that's 2023, So we said, why don't we just put money and contribute to what government is doing? So that by the time when government is procuring, then they use some of the money that we have, and they use their logistics. So remember, government has all the cold chains, they have the logistics of distribution of vaccines, and COVID vaccines are not the first vaccines. So government has done this from time immemorial with vaccines. So they already have the whole system in place. And so we don't need to set up another system in place.
Right.
What we can do is partner. And already, even with other vaccines beyond COVID, the private sector, like hospitals, have always been involved. The Aga Khans, the hospitals, and many small private sector hospitals around the country. And so there's already that partnership that exists. And so the private sector hospitals already came out and said, okay, our role in this partnership is to continue to get involved, to partner with government, to be the places where people can come for vaccination, or if we need be, if we have 1,000 employees and their families and the community around you, we can come to you, and we know that, and as long as you work within the framework of government.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting that you say that, because I look at, just as you talk about not just COVID, but other vaccinations as well, and the manner in which they take place. Look at polio, for example, and we have the people who are going 2 by 2 to each people's homes to get this done. Would we see things open up in such a nature at some point, or are we looking at difficult logistics in terms of getting it done in that manner? Because if the end goal, as what you said, is to make sure that as many people are vaccinated as possible, would we take that route?
I'm not sure for now, because remember also the COVID vaccine is a bit sensitive.
Yes.
It needs certain cold chains, so we may not see people carrying little bags like we see with polio and walking around, different places. So we'll use only what is approved by government. where the centers are approved by government, that are managed, that government is very aware that they're using the rules given and the regulations, whether they are private sector hospitals or government hospitals. And then what we are doing is giving government our list and telling them these are the people who have contributed to this initiative. This is where they are. And so then government will be able to look and say, within that region, where are the approved places where they can go? And that list will be given to that place. If they decide, they say, okay, maybe here we can set up a tent because there's so many, instead of taking all of them to a hospital, maybe there's only a health clinic around there, they'll do that. But that's that will leave to government to decide, because we want to work through their system and what is approved already.
So what we're likely to see is in the ordinary vaccination centers, there'll be a desk for KEPSA members.
They did.
Or how are you going to make sure that the people who ought to be enjoying this benefit are the ones that are getting it?
Yeah, so they'll have a list. Remember, we're not just doing KEPSA members. We have then foundations that have contributed into this initiative. Embassies, we just said we're just a coordinating body as KEPSA. So yes, maybe what I should correct from my statement is to say it's just not private sector. We've had others like foundations and embassies contributing to this, because it's the only mechanism outside government that you can contribute to, at least for now. And so we have many others. There are those who are coming and saying, there are far places, in remote areas that government has not reached, and we as a foundation know where those people are. We work with them, and so we'll be part of this initiative so that we can get governments to know who these people are and how to come there. So we have those kind of places. So what we are giving them is a list. So we say Foundation X is in, maybe let's say some place in some remote area. Maybe let me not quote the name. Yeah. And so they'll be able to say, okay, this is the list we have. These are the names of the people. We will now set up knowing which health center to use in our place. So then they'll be able to communicate to us and tell us, for these names that you give us for this region, please ask them to go to this place, or we'll be able to go to this place. So that's the end logistics that we are working with them in the next couple of days. And then remember, it's in batches. So we have about 263 companies that have contributed. Those are about 263,000 vaccines. But all of them will not get the vaccines that are coming tonight. We have divided them into 3 phases, because government is going to receive in phases. And then because there are also others who government has mapped up for Johnson & Johnson. So we are working within that framework. So we'll continue to work until we're done with phase 1. Then we'll start phase 2. And each phase may be different as we move along. So this, what I'm describing, is only for phase 1. And then maybe by the time we move to phase 2, we'll have figured out a different mechanism. And then phase 3, and as we go along. But our idea is, can we vaccinate as many Kenyans as possible and enable the economy to be able to build back better?
What you're doing is actually extremely commendable. And it is something that I think any words of praise would be inadequate. But having said that, let me ask this question. Do I understand you to be saying that when it comes to the planning, the issues of distribution and the actual rollout, the rollout, we know it's government, that all these activities are in the hands of the government. But what I want to know is your participation beyond providing the money for buying it. What else, what say do you have in the actual rollout of the vaccines? One, with regard to your members and those who've paid, and 2, now to the population of people who may qualify as family members of your employees or of your group, and then the rest of the country.
So we are playing in both sections. So yes, they're contributing the money, which is part of the procurement, where government is procuring. Then there's the distribution, where there are private hospitals are coming in, and through the Kenya Medical and Dentist Practitioners Board, they are helping coordinate that, because they're already working with the government. And so they are working, that's where the private sector hospitals and health centers are coming in. And then, of course, then we are also making sure that whichever list we provide, we say we have provided for 70,000 people in this first phase using that as an example, then we're able to get back to this 70,000 and say, did you get your vaccine? Because this is what we provided to government as the list, and then they're able to give us feedback and say, yes, we got our vaccines. Then we tick the boxes, and then we move to the next group. So we are not, we are working with government from end to end. It's a partnership. And because we've done this before, we are running other programs with government, like the Ajira program, which is the online jobs with Ministry of ICT, again, end to end. So it's something that we know how to do. So we never leave it. We don't say that because we're partnering with government, give them the money, and then we sit back. No, it's just which part do we continue to play, even as government. So everyone brings their strength into the game or their comparative advantage.
Does it mean that you therefore have set up a committee within KEPSA that is in charge of managing the rollout of these particular vaccines to the members that have contributed?
Yes, we do have a team. We actually have a technical team that is partly that is comprised of ourselves and government. So that is the one that is managing the whole process.
Okay, so far
And they meet on a regular basis.
So far 263 companies have participated in this. How many people are we talking about?
That's 263,000 doses.
So 263,000 doses. That's 263,000 people from across the country.
Yes.
Do you have like a concentration map? How many are in Nairobi? How many are outside Nairobi?
That's actually what we are doing right now as we get the doses to arrive. And then what we are going to do, we are going to start with first, whoever paid first, so that it's fair.
Okay.
So because as I said, we are not getting all the 263 doses today. Remember government is only getting, I think, 396,000.
Okay.
So we're going to divide into batches. And so to be fair, we said we're going to divide, if we get 70,000 or we get 100,000, we see who are the first 70,000 who paid, who are the first 100,000 who paid, who are the next batch.
Is there a publicly available list for people to know that I am company number 200?
Yeah, we are putting that together and sending it to them. Yeah, so they will know. So they'll know who's been vaccinated first. They'll also now know where this will happen and when it's happening. Yeah, so that information is available to all of them.
Carol, I'm just a bit, just a little bit confused. So just help me out here. Okay, so. Companies who have paid, because obviously coming together in this consortium, companies have paid, right? So vaccines come in, the allocation per company is given to said company, right? Now, does this company then have they then make the decisions on where they will go? Are they attached to a particular medical health facility? Do they then decide what part of the country these vaccinations will go to? And then do I say, because I know one company has received this, I can then go to a facility under them? Or exactly how does this map out?
So let me give you a good example. Let's say if you're a flower farm in Naivasha and you've registered about 200,000 people. These are your employees, their families, and maybe some of the community that is around. Because what we ask the companies to do, at least give a minimum of 5 vaccines to the community around you. So, and there are some who are coming back and saying, I only have 100 employees, but I would like to contribute 200 to the community.
Okay.
So if your company X of a flower farm in Naivasha and you've given that to government, so government will say, okay, for all those in Naivasha, this is the facility to go. This is where the list is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So they will know, and then we'll communicate to them, and then they will know which day to go and where to go.
So can companies then make the decision and say, even if it's not their employees, we want to be able to make these available to, community X in this area, and that can be done?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there a direct formula where we're saying, if I've contributed $10, I've contributed $10, that's for one vaccine. Another $10 shall be for CSR. Or is there a percentage for that for X for every amount of?
We had given them 1 to 5.
Okay.
But we say that just to give you an idea. If you want to contribute more, please go ahead, and they are doing that. So when I say 263,000, that's not only private sector. Half of that is even going to the communities. And what we said with the community, so we'll agree with government. They want to do the community around there, around where the companies are, or do they want to just give to the community of where the government has also mapped of where they want to take? So we'll give leeway to government on that, because this is just its contribution.
And will all of this go into the same centralized system that the government is using, so that when this is also going on, it comes into that like one national grid where you have an idea of the footprint of vaccinations that have taken place in the country? Is all going into the same system?
It all goes into the same system. You all get the same message you get, like if you go for any other vaccine, you're all in the app, so you won't even know the difference. It does that. You're saying we are part of it. We are in the background.
Okay.
You know what we've seen this week, Carol, is the allegation of politics getting its way into the vaccination campaign. Where the accusation here is that some individuals decided to take some vaccines that are earmarked for public, took them to a different and set up their own vaccination center, with all of that with a political intention. How do you safeguard this particular exercise of yours from being taken over by politicians who may want to, you're saying 263,000, 100,000 vaccine doses going to some community somewhere, and a politician saying, I'm the one who's brought it to you?
Because then they would have to get into the government system and be able to get those vaccines. Remember, they are not separated. When they come, they are not earmarked and they are written. These ones are for KEPSA contribution. In the government system, it's just that we in the background know what we have contributed and where these ones need to go. And so the community ones, it's governments putting and saying, you know what, we have another 100,000 of J&J that have been paid for, but you see they are part of the other 200,000 that we have that we're going to distribute into different hospitals and health centers. So once they distribute, and let that health center, now a politician has connections, which is what I think we saw in this situation, where then you go to that health center and be able to talk to someone in the health center or the hospital and get those vaccines and take them to somewhere else. That's the only possibility. It's at the end of the chain where then that can happen, not between the chains.
Let's take a break, Carol, and then we continue the conversation. We are speaking to Carol Kariuki. She is a Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. So KEPSA has mobilized its members and others in the community to help the government in the vaccine rollout. So they've raised some money. 263 organizations have raised money for 263,000 doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. First batch is supposed to start arriving this evening. So this is Johnson & Johnson is a single dose. So we are talking about 263,000 individuals who are likely to benefit from this particular scheme. So we want to understand the details, the mechanics of rolling out this, and how else other private sector organizations can participate in this particular move. Keep it right here for more of this. We are live on SpiceFM, on KTN Home, and we're also live online. Good morning, 8:30.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Have you seen them? Am I live?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me, what channel is SpiceFM?
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
you.
you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you. And it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
We're still looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 16, highs of 22 and lows of 13 today. In Nakuru, partly sunny conditions at 16, highs of 24 and lows of 14. At Nyeri, still continues to rain at 14, highs of 21 and lows of 13. Out in Kisumu, it's sunny at 21, highs of 29 and lows of 18. That rain has stopped. And In Kakamega this morning at 20, light rain continues, highs of 27 and lows of 15. Mombasa is raining still at 25, highs of 28 and lows of 23. And in Malindi this morning, it's mostly sunny at 27, highs of 29 and lows of 25. In Kampala, it's mostly cloudy, going to highs of 25 today. It'll come back to lows of 19. Light rain continues in Dar es Salaam at 24, highs of 30 and lows of 21. It's raining in Lagos at 26, highs of 29 and lows of 25. And Kinshasa is sunny this morning at 22. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of 29. So, coming out of Westlands, into the city this morning, very slow traffic, and also we're looking at Ngong Road, and there are pockets of which continue to pile up here and there. Jogo Road now is looking beautiful, going on into Landis, and then Kamkunji at the roundabout there. It won't take too long to get into the city, and the back way then of industrial area through to Enterprise and joining with Mombasa Road is an option. If you're going to Mombasa Road, industrial area now could be an option for you. If you're not ready to deal with the Bunyala Road roundabout issue, go round Enterprise and then you come out at General Motors. There's an option for you. And we're also looking at the traffic continuing on Langata Road this morning, still very heavy. Thika Road as well, we're seeing the same thing, heavy traffic inbound. Also from Kiambu Road, it continues. Let's take a look at what it looks like in a short while. We're still in traffic hour. We'll make it out without too much of a scratch, we hope. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text us on 40127. Let's keep things moving this morning.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
26
FM.
minutes to 9. Kenya's biggest conversation continues, and on this show, we don't just pour water for where they're elders. We are very well methodical in how we do things. In the Situation Room is Eric Latif Nduoko, CT Muga, and joining us on the line is Caro Karaoke, CEO of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. We're talking about the private sector's initiative that is aimed at helping the government in the vaccine rollout. Some 263 organizations have participated so far, contributed money into a kitty that's being used by the government to purchase COVID-19 vaccines, Johnson & Johnson vaccines. First batch is supposed to start arriving in the country later this evening, and then this will be rolled out, not just to the family and the workers and the families of those that have contributed, but also there's a CSR element that goes into the community. And Caro, just to get you right, you said so far you're working with a ratio of 1:5. That means for every 5 doses the company buys for its staff, 1 will go to somebody who is not in the organization. Am I right?
So the companies are handling it differently, because remember, some of them are small companies and others are big. So when we say 1 to 5, is at least contribute to 1 dose or up to 5 doses, and if you can do more,
it was 1 up to 5, not a ratio of 1 to 5.
No, not ratio.
Sorry, I got you wrong. So then if my small organization has decided that I'm going to do 75% of all the money that I've contributed is going to the community, how will that translate? Because you're not going to give my organization the doses to distribute. It's all being handled by the government. So how shall we make sure that my 75% actually goes to benefit the community and the community that I wanted to benefit?
No, you don't choose the community, because, you when you say community, you may be somewhere where, you're far from people and all that. So it's our contribution to government to increase in its vaccination. So if government says in our first batch of J&J, we're going to do more in Mombasa and less in Nairobi. So when we say then we're contributing 100,000 to the community. So when they were doing, maybe government was doing 200 in Mombasa, then they can do 300 now, so that's the whole idea of the contribution to community. So we are not picking and choosing the community. And also it's also to safeguard some of the multinationals. Multinationals are very sensitive. They don't want to feel like maybe they contribute and then all you did is gather your family members in one corner and call them a community. We're not expecting anyone to do that, but we wouldn't want to get into kind of those discussions.
Okay, so how is this working? I'm still not understanding it. Let's say I run a small organization. I have 10 employees. It's $10 per dose.
Yes.
So 10 times 10 is 100. So how much am I then required to contribute if I decide that I want to do the one? How much am I? What's the minimum that I'm supposed to contribute then, so that I can benefit my 10 employees?
Another dose to the community, and when we say community, it's your CSR.
Okay,
it's
so an extra dose.
Yes, an extra dose.
For my 10 employees, I buy 11 doses.
Yes. Yeah. You can choose 11 doses, you can choose at least or 15 doses, or you can say, you know what, actually I can afford another 20 doses, but at least we gave them 1 to 5 just to make it easier, but we've realized people are actually willing to contribute more to the community, and it's CSR. It's like you're just giving money to the community saying, here is a grant from me, please vaccinate more people, So, and we'll get the numbers because government will say, okay, we could have brought in 200,000, but we brought 300,000, and they'll have the numbers. We vaccinated 300,000 people. So we contributed something towards that.
That plan is superb. It's an excellent plan. The unfortunate thing is I don't share the same faith you have in government. And I'll tell you why I don't share that same faith. You see, there are parts of this country that, with all the good intentions of the government, do not have the same proliferation of, say, health facilities like others. They just don't have. It's neither here nor there. It's just the fact they don't have it. Now, even when it comes to the rollout of vaccines or rollout of some of these preventative activities that the government takes, they may get them, but there are parts of the country that are the tail end of receiving these things. I'm not saying, and partly. The problem would partly be because of their own county system, the health systems that they have. Let's say, for instance, I have a cattle processing plant, say, somewhere, a place called Bachuma, let's say, okay, on the Mombasa, Nairobi highway. It's in the middle of nowhere as far as most people are concerned, but there are people who live there. And I would like to benefit them. Is there no room for me to negotiate and say, look, folks, I would like to support to this particular community, because if we don't do this, they'll be left out of this, given where they are and just the circumstances in which they find themselves.
So yes, and that's why I said some foundations have come to us who operate in those very remote areas. And they've said, you know what, we want to contribute this. So that is a discussion we're having with government where there's something very specific, So we're not making it an open-ended so that everyone says, I want this, I want this. It also becomes very difficult for government.
That is true.
But those who are coming to us and saying, we operate in this remote area, these are people who've not been reached for by vaccine. So we are paying so that you can come. And those are being counted more like you're paying for your employees. You get what I mean? If you're a foundation operating in some remote area, you're paying those that count and giving us a list as if you're counting them to be your employees. So that's allowable. So that's not even we make it from our end. We see it as community. In the way we are treating it, is you're looking at that as the employees and their families.
There's a comment that I want to read to you here, Carol, and it's on Twitter. The Twitter account is COVID_Kenya. They're saying, not doubting, Carol, this is, but this is in danger of sounding like a scam. I'm glad that KEPSA wants to help expand vaccination, fill the gaps and partner. But the Ministry of Health is being really confusing and opaque about the vaccinations right now. We need to get that working fast. It goes on to say it could result in the MOH effectively rationing free vaccinations with the already donated vaccines, prioritizing selling them to the private sector. Basically, if the government is able to access 500,000 doses of Johnson & Johnson, for the country, what there's the issue here is, could it just say those are the ones that were bought by the private sector and just say this is the money that came from private sector, we've bought the 500,000 instead of what were our budgetary allocation for purchasing vaccines, number one. Number two, that opaqueness about the vaccinations right now. Where is vaccinations taking place? Where, how many are being distributed to what health facilities? If that is not yet rolling smoothly, now imagine introducing this one where the private sector has provided a list. So there's a list. There's people with IDs, people who are coming and they're saying, I work for this organization. You are not on the list. Confusion galore, Carol.
They are donated vaccines. They are bought vaccines.
Yeah.
You know, we could, and I don't claim to know that everything will work perfect, because we are dealing with a system that requires a lot of logistics in terms of how government works. But we'll give it our best. The best thing is to do what we can do best to get as many Kenyans vaccinated. You know, so will government come and say that they procured 500,000 and used Kenyan money and that was the private sector money? I don't think that would be right, and that's possible, because you see, then they'll be saying, okay, if you procured, let me just use that as an example, you procured 5,000 for government, and then you said it was private sector, and then you give that list. You see, we already have a list, you know, and that guys are able to say, no, we only gave 200,000, you know, or even if we gave that 500,000, then all this then will be going to this list. And to be very clear, then government cannot now turn around and say, those are the ones we are sending to County X, you know, as ours. You know, you can't make that confusion. So I think let's be fair to say that we've tried our best to work the list very carefully to know this is the percentage we've contributed to what government is bringing. As I already said, tonight about 396,000 are coming in. We are maybe for this first part, we're only contributing money for a batch of about maybe 70,000, 100,000. We're still trying to finalize that with government in the course of the day. You know, so there's no way they'll say the money we contributed is what they paid with 196,000. We didn't contribute money for 196,000. You know, we're only contributing for a section.
Yeah.
You know, and we'll continue to work with that in batches and batches. You know, so I know there's always a lot of skepticism where government is, but I think the way we've worked before, even in other programs, we've not gotten into that mix. I think it's just being very careful and working the system very well.
Okay.
So where there've been issues with government before, we've not been part of that, and so I think we'll be okay.
I've got a couple of questions, Carol. Number one, what prompted or motivated KEPSA to start this initiative? Did the government reach out, or did you reach out to the government?
We reached out to the government.
Why?
Actually, when the government put out the list of saying, by the time we do maybe 30% of the population or we get to herd immunity, they had given a timeline of up to 2023. And so we said, no, how can we help to get to that herd immunity sooner? You know, if government is saying this is the funds they have, these are the contributions they're getting. And also at that point you were saying, maybe we can also use some of our partners out there and work through government to reach through some of those vaccines. You know, we just said, how can we come in and help?
Okay.
You know, so even today, if I talk to any of my counterparts around the world and I say, do you guys think you can help us gather some of the vaccines that are not being used in your country? And they put together, we will still use government to get to those vaccines and get to us. So we're just going to use any mechanism that is possible, but it's a partnership with government. So that's just to avoid that whole thing of, government, we have to live with the policy that government has set.
Okay.
More procurement by private sector, not selling of vaccines. Because once you get into that murkiness, we know what happens.
Indeed. And, you know, when the government was talking about even doing this rollout up to 2023, getting the percentages, the main issue was logistical challenges, not financial. So when private sector comes in with a financial solution to a logistical problem, that's why I'm asking, what motivated you to come up with a financial solution when the government is saying our main challenge right now is logistical, is accessing the vaccines. It's not that we don't have the money. So what made you come up with money as a solution?
Because you see, there are two things. There's access, and there's also what government can afford. You know, And so also to say we can move faster. So if government is saying in this cycle we can put this amount of money, in this cycle we can put this amount of money, because they've done their math, they've done their budgeting, because there are other projects and initiatives and other business government is doing, then we said, then we can come in, and instead of you putting in this phase this amount of money, can we add a little bit? Just to increase in that vaccination process. And can we take a section of the population that we already know and can reach, So, and which we know is the private sector. And now we realize there are others who would like to be part of the initiative, and we said we'll include you. And that's when I said some of the foundations and embassies decided to be part of that.
Some of your members raising this kind of questions that I'm asking. I mean, why is the private sector contributing in a public health emergency? It's a public health emergency. The government is fully in charge of it. The government has a 3 trillion shillings budget that's rolling out this financial year. Why then are taxpayers still paying to get the services?
As I said, because government already came up with a plan and they said what they can afford in every phase. So we said we accelerate. And remember, we are not the first ones. We actually borrowed this model from Thailand. Thailand private sector is the one that started putting, and their model is a little bit different, but they're the ones who started coming up with such an idea like this. And so we said, okay, since we can see we're not there, there's someone else who's doing this just to facilitate, to fast track the vaccination, can we come in and do? You remember the last year when in the height of COVID and government needed money, again, it set up a team, which was made of private sector, that raised money to again contribute, because again, this is not the only thing that is happening in the country, and so we cannot draw out everything that is happening in other initiatives. And we've always come in whenever there's a crisis. Remember that we started some of these things from Kenyans for Kenyans. Remember that, and we could have argued those days and said, you know what?
Yes,
the government has money for drought, but we when there's a crisis, we say, how do we come in? We are Kenyans. We want to help. And if government has given a plan and they're saying, okay, in Kenyans for Kenyans, we're saying these are the foods we are already giving, and we said, okay, that's not enough. And if you're saying that's what you can give now, we want to come in and help. So it's something we've always participated whenever there's a bit of crisis, whenever there's a need, because we feel that we are part of this country.
Indeed, Carol.
Whatever goes right or wrong, we are part of it. And so this is just something that we've done over the years, only that this is a different crisis.
It's our inherent Harambee spirit. I mean, we come in to help one another when things are going wrong. When we can chip in, we chip in.
Yeah.
But there's a problem here, Carol. We keep subsidizing the government to do the government's job. And as private sector has been very vocal about this. How is the government raising its revenues? How is the government prioritizing the projects that it's taking these revenues to? Now, when there's drought, there's famine, Kenyans, individual citizens come and contribute to the government. There's a public health emergency, citizens again contribute to the government. We contributed last year through the Jane Karuku Fund. We are contributing now through KEPSA's initiative. What else are we going to contribute to?
The government can't provide sufficient schools. The private sector comes in and builds schools.
And we do a Harambee.
Government doesn't provide enough hospitals. Private sector comes in and helps build hospitals.
No. It's all developing countries.
So, are we perpetuating by this? Are we just perpetuating that constant process of continuing to help government? Or are we saying that in this moment where more Kenyans need help, in order for us, or are we saying in this moment where we need to be able to open up the economy, more and more Kenyans need to be vaccinated, and that is why this is being done? Because the government is not able to move at a speed that will then enable the economy to be opened up as quickly as it should be, enter in private sector to help to speed this along. On to what end? How long will this process continue, Carol? So 263,000 Kenyans will be vaccinated at the end of this particular process, right? Are we looking at another 263,000? Will more and more companies come in and continue to do this until we reach 1 million, 5 million, 10 million?
So what we're doing, we had actually said, at first we thought we would start with phase 1 and do 1 million. Then we realized we can't do 1 million immediately, because first we also need to be able to say, how does this work? Let's start with small numbers. But secondly, there's also access challenges, and I guess we've discussed that. Global challenges. So you're not gonna get 1 million immediately. And so let's work in phases. So if we get to 1 million, and then they still need, and private sector still wants to continue to do the initiative, then we'll continue. If they say, okay, I think with what we've done and the government efforts in bringing different other vaccines and all that, I think we are good, and the country is in a good space, then we'll stop. We'll only be partners on this as long as it's needed, and private sector is willing to continue.
In terms of checks and balances, I want to go back to that area that Eric had brought up, and in terms of being able to make sure that we don't have a situation where people are maybe unscrupulous in nature and want to take advantage of this, because essentially what we're saying, Carol, is that if I as company X pay 100,000 shillings, right? That means I essentially have carte blanche in terms of who this goes to. I decide who it goes to. Number one, how then do we cater for those who would need but don't have access? And then how will you be able to check and make sure that I then am not in a position where I'm reselling, for example, or going about any other kind of unscrupulous activity? Do we have a check in place?
Yes, we've tried to put all the paperwork we can. What I can tell you for now, and maybe we'll have this conversation after we've done this first phase. And then I'll be able to explain better. Oh, this is how it worked. Maybe here is where we saw a gap that we are working on. But for now we've done our best. We put all the paperwork together. We put all the logistics together. There's a technical team. From our side and government side that is working on this day and night. And we know they keep communicating to all of us, communicating to the members. We are checking back and forth. We are working very closely both with the Ministry of Health and Treasury. So we are doing what we must do and what we know we know to do. For now. After this phase, we'll look back and say, okay, what can we do different? Can we add more? And that's why I said, starting with small numbers is also very good, because then it helps us pick some lessons than before we begin with a big number of 1 million or so. So maybe in another week, once we've done this first phase, if we could have this conversation, then I'll respond to some of the questions more clearly. But for now, I think what we've done is just put out the framework and the logistics as best as we can, and now work on the rollout and see how it goes.
So, Carol, speak to the people who are listening, those who are members of KEPSA and those who are not members of KEPSA, but they'd like to participate in this initiative. How do they do that?
So if you're a member of KEPSA, if you're not a member of KEPSA right now and you want to participate in this initiative, please do write to us just at info, or you can just email. Just email to us. There's an email we've been providing in the information that we've been sending out. If you've not seen that email, you can just send info@kepsa.or.ke. It will be picked out, given to the team that is coordinating that. They've already started putting the companies that were a bit late for phase 1 to phase 2. So we're already putting a database on that one. So you can participate in phase 2. And if you get late on phase 2, there'll be phase 3. So we are just working as long as we are needed and as long as people want to be part of this initiative. That's really what our mantra is right now.
So info@kepsa.or.ke.
.ke. There's someone who's checking that email and will pass that information to the team.
And those that have already contributed to this, and then they see the first batch of vaccines arriving in the country, how shall they know when their people will get vaccinated?
All that information is being communicated to them. They've even been told the different weeks that vaccines are coming, and a list is being sent. And because they've already been told it's first come, first served in terms of who paid first. So if we are told there are only 50,000 that are going into this initiative, the first 50,000 or the first 70,000 or the first 100,000, they are communicated. They know where to go. They know which day to go. And those lists are with us and are with government. And then government is able to give us back the list ticked and say, these are the people vaccinated. We are able to confirm on our end if that's true. And if anything there was a challenge, then we know how to deal with the challenge at that point.
Thank you very much. Carol Kariuki, CEO, KEPSA. Thank you for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to come back after we do the phase 1. I can speak now more.
Oh, most definitely. And this time we'll be in the studio, hopefully.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Carol. Okay, thank you.
And thank you to everybody who's been watching us on KTN Home. We want to say thank you. It's 3 minutes to 9, but the conversations continue on SpiceFM. Tune in around the country. 94.4 Nairobi, 87.9 Mombasa, Kisumu, 102.5, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret. Nyeri is 90.9 and Malindi is 97.7.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
All right, it's
94.4.
I'm looking at you, CT, because you're deep in thought.
You know
a penny for your thoughts.
I think Kepsa,
make it $10.
Okay, I will. It's a tricky situation because there is a need that needs to be met, and Kepsa are doing the best that they can. And at the back of my mind, I feel the government is also doing what they can within the means that they have. But unfortunately, anything that has to do with the government, in my mind, gets historical. I go back to things that should have been done, ought to have been done, and were not done. And I keep asking, so how sure am I that this one will actually get done? That people are getting vaccinated is true. But why is it so difficult for the government to just communicate effectively? Even if we had received 3 vaccines, okay? Why can't they just communicate so that it is known? When we go to County X,
we will have such and such.
this is where the vaccines will be going to. And the number of vaccines that we're giving County X is this. Now, that county will then roll out and tell you how it is they're going to distribute it. Done.
People just want to know.
That's it. It's done. So we know. So
Now
we know.
you introduce a new dimension where there's a special list.
Yes. So we know.
The Ministry of Health says we are vaccinating people across the country. It's not a Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Moderna. It doesn't matter. We're sending vaccines. And then you have paid for a one-dose jab for your employees.
And their families or whomever else.
Yes?
Yeah.
How then do...
You start to bring in all sorts of other things. Equity, is it fair? Is it not fair?
Are
I
you
thought
going
this
to be
was
able
for
to manage that
everybody.
list?
Will you be able to manage it? Somebody shows up and says government said, and I'm not on the list, but government said. What are you going to do?
A very good morning to you. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. IEBC has 30 days to renew the tender for the purchase and distribution of KIMS kits to be used in next year's general election. This after the Public Procurement Administration and Review Board said the Commission's tender had not complied with the law when it announced a procurement tender for the equipment. The IEBC announced the procurement exercise earlier this year and set a deadline for companies that would like to submit applications. 6 police officers have been charged with the murder of 2 brothers in Kianjokoma, Embu County. The 6 pleaded not guilty before Justice Daniel Ogembo of the High Court. Their lawyer Dunstan Omari wanted an inquest to be conducted first before they take plea, an application that was opposed by the prosecution and equally denied by the judge.
Bunge la Taifa la Kenya ambalo halijatangazwa kwamba ni bunge haramu lilitengeneza kipengele cha 387 ambacho kinasema kwamba iwapo mtu yeyote awe Omari ama Salma ama nani atakapokufa akiwa mikononi mwa polisi, basi sheria inasema kwamba kwa kile kifungu ile shtaka lile ombi la kuchunguzwa lazima liende kwa public inquest. Hawa wanalindwa na katiba.
Omari asked the court to grant the accused persons bail, a request that the court directed it be heard on September 22nd.
It is for this reason that I am adjourning this matter of bail so that the prosecution side are accorded the opportunity to respond to the applications raised by the accused persons. So I will adjourn this matter. Let us agree on a date for prosecution with response.
A madrasa teacher in Mombasa County will serve 20 years in jail after being found guilty of raping a 12-year-old girl. A Mombasa court has convicted Kuso Hassan of committing the crime in February 2019 in Majengo, Mvita in Mombasa County. Hassan is accused of raping the child at his residence, which he had converted into a madrasa school. Chief Magistrate Edna Nyaluti said the evidence presented before court showed that the suspect had committed the atrocity on purpose. A section of northeastern leaders have launched a new political outfit dubbed Upya Movement, anchored on social, economic and compassionate leadership model. The leaders have declared support for President Uhuru Kenyatta and his allies. The leaders said they'll have one political vehicle that they'll use to champion the interest of the people of Northern Frontier.
Leaders of ASAL areas, the embracing of a new model of compassionate leadership, or uongozi wa watu, declare accordingly the formation of a political movement to be known as the Upya Movement.
This is a region that occupies over close to 70% of the Kenyan landmass with huge resource potential. But our voices as a region has not been coherent.
Tunaona kila kabila imeanza kujitenga. Sisi ni wafugaji. Hakuna mtu anataka sisi. Tumeamua kuwa kwa President Uhuru kwa sababu ndio anatutaka.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
And it still continues on Mombasa Road this morning, and we're seeing inbound quite some traffic still, at least until you get to General Motors. After that, it seems to be flowing smoothly, not too badly. As you then approach the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, heading out towards on Uhuru Highway towards the Haile Selassie Avenue, not too bad now. However, as you're going towards Westlands, that picks up quite some. In and outbound on Uhuru Highway, looks like it's going to continue for some time. Gong Road, also looking at pockets of traffic as you approach the City Mortuary roundabout. In the middle of the city, it's still quite full. Langata Road continues to be a thing, looking a little bit better on the thicker superhighway. Actually, no, that's a lie. It's actually quite thick beyond Survey. Beyond that, not too much of a problem. But as you get to the Pangani underpass and you connect to Muthui Square, it continues there. All right, we'll keep an eye on things this morning, and hopefully you don't get stuck. If you do, let's talk about it, shall we? SpiceFMKE on Twitter, text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only
5
way
minutes
to
after
start your
9,
day.
Kenya's biggest conversation gets into the final hour. C.T. Muga. Proverb.
Where there are elders, you don't pour water anyhowly.
Where there are elders, you don't pour water anyhowly. Behave. There should be order. Right? There's a way to behave.
There is certainly a way to behave. There's a way to conduct yourself.
Okay.
Behave.
Yeah. Matt Timothy Kinyoda says the government underfunds the health sector because it knows that philanthropies like KEPSA will step in to fill the budget. I feel the same way.
You know,
I feel exactly the same way. It's a good initiative by the private sector. The 263 organizations that have come in are coming in because they're dealing with reality, okay? Not utopian things, but the government should do. But look, People are in danger today. Those people are employees. We are having to shut down the organization because an entire department, there is COVID-19 spreading in the entire department. So productivity is being affected severely. So let's deal with the issue as we need to deal with it. Can we get them vaccinated? Yes, we'd like to get them vaccinated. The only way that vaccines shall get to them is through the government route. So let us facilitate the government's route so that our people can get vaccinated. From that point of view, makes a lot of sense. It makes business sense because this is about business. It makes business sense to do that. But at the same time, those questions should be asked. If I can give you money and you'll be bringing me the vaccine tomorrow, why can't you bring the vaccine tomorrow? You haven't told me that it's money that you don't have. You just passed a 3 trillion shillings budget. Are there things that you can work around so that you bring... when you're making the budget in the middle of COVID-19 crisis, increasing that budget by 1 trillion shillings, how much did you put for vaccination and for dealing with this emergency? If a government just operates like, there's a health emergency, what do we need to do? We need to make sure that people go to hospital and get treatment. What else do we need to do? We need to make sure that our healthcare workers have PPEs. What else do we need to do? We need to make sure that we can access vaccines around the country. What else do we need to do? Okay, so now let's put in budget for building houses, for building roads. So we'll put in money for paying salaries. We'll put in money for buying flowers. We'll put in money for doing this and the other, for expanding our port. And how about those other things that we talked about? Which ones? The health crisis. Oh, that one. How can you help? Nonsense, man.
You know, if you look at the budget that... our current budget, 2021-2022, the 3.64 trillion budget, there was an allocation for the purchase of COVID vaccines.
Yeah.
It was 14.3 billion.
14 billion shillings.
Yes. Now, the issue isn't the budgeting, the allocation. Every once in a while, something damning comes up through the Auditor General's office. And what they're querying, they're saying, money was spent, yes, we get it. But we don't have documentation to explain how and why this was spent the way you're saying it was spent. Okay. But even before then, if you simply look at the rollout of the vaccine, and we talk about the numbers of Kenyans who've been vaccinated. Yeah. Yes, we are told this was the focus. We wanted to focus on the elderly. We wanted to focus on those with pre-existing conditions. We wanted to, all that we've gotten. But something as serious as this pandemic, beyond what the numbers are and beyond the number of vaccines that we are getting, I feel that this culture of opaqueness really needs to be brought to a halt now, because this discussion we keep having, in my mind, is even unhealthy. What is difficult about saying, folks, very simply, this is what we are going to do. You know that briefing that we keep getting? Right. Folks, there are 47 counties. Okay, the population in each of these counties is X. Now, this is what we are going to do, because we even have the numbers of those who are elderly. Now, in this county, we've vaccinated so many. We intend to vaccinate this number, given the priorities that we have.
Yeah.
And this is what we are going to do. I mentioned this in the previous hour. When it comes to where we are going to store the vaccines, by the way, it is known where vaccines are supposed to be stored. But in this county, each of these counties, county X this, county Y this, county... Now, this is a default function. So when it comes to the details of how it's going to get to the various health facilities, we expect the county governments to supply you with the details of how it is. And also a timetabling of how it is it's going to be rolled out. Is what I'm saying that difficult?
No, it isn't.
You know why?
It is.
Okay, Eric? You say it is difficult?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what he's saying is that it must be so difficult. It must be so difficult because it's not being done. That's why it must be difficult.
Do you know something?
It's just difficult. They just. Okay. Do you see how many words you've used to explain it?
There were a bit many.
Yeah. It's just difficult.
All right. Let me use a few words and just, in fact, let me use one word. No, 2 words. Polio vaccination. The things I'm saying.
It's the same thing.
The things I'm saying,
That
it's
has
done. You know.
happened.
You know why? You're told. Even on the day and how and where and when. It's done. Same ministry.
And they say,
Same.
they even tell you in the next 5 days, in the next 2 weeks, we shall be coming. And guess what? Like clockwork, they show up with the vaccination. It's done. They mark your gate or whatever. They mark it in school. We're not talking about something
Normally,
that is
who
important.
stands behind all that? It's government at the front. Who's behind it? You've got the World Health Organization.
You have Global Fund.
You've got Global Fund. You've got UNICEF.
Okay.
All these guys are behind it.
So do you know what you're saying essentially, Eric? You're saying that in order to have something of this nature done in this country, you will need external support. The government is not able to carry out something like this on its own. That's what you're saying.
The government is able to carry out something like this on its own when it wants to. It'll do it. I keep reminding you, we have how many thousands of elections on a single day? Not 6 elections. We counted the other day. We have close to 4,000 elections being conducted, and they're going to be conducted next year on the second Tuesday of August next year, 9th of August next year.
On the same day.
We will have all those elections. Ballot papers will be distributed. Polling centers will be identified. Polling clerks will be trained. Polls will open, polls will close, counting will happen, results will be announced. All those things will happen. When the government wants, it'll do it.
Do you remember the census? Ndu?
Same thing.
Did we not have a census conducted?
So
1 week.
when it comes to matters of health, or those things that actually affect the most vulnerable in this country, it would appear as though then it's not a priority. It isn't a priority to be able to get it done. Throw the adequate resources behind it. Input the right amount of support. You're going to have to wait for external. Look at what we were talking about with blood. Till today, the blood transfusion systems are limping at best because there's no external support. HIV, if all the external support were to be removed completely, that too would be dead in the water. We're talking about polio vaccination that works brilliantly in the country. It only works that way because there's external support. Right now, we're looking at having only vaccinated 4 million people in the country to date, right? 40% of that number is those who have received the complete dose, right? So we're saying that in order to have it done in a short period of time, then it needs to become a priority for government. We're looking at a pandemic. We're not looking at incidental cases of a disease. We're looking at a pandemic whereby a large percentage of the people have been infected or affected. In order to have anything done to take it that affects your most vulnerable in the country, it's not a priority. And so you're not going to throw your weight behind it like you would with other things, and you're going to hope that other people will come in to do something about it. That's what we're saying. That's the size of it. That's the state of things right now. That's it. It's not a priority. It could wipe out your population, but it's not a priority. And we will throw our weight and support behind those who come in. And the weight and support that I'm talking about is applause.
So
And
the
thank
14
you.
billion shillings that was earmarked, set aside in the budget.
It was set aside in the budget.
For vaccination.
Just vaccination, not health.
Vaccination. COVID-19 vaccination.
Yes.
Okay, 14 billion shillings. Now, you're the one who does the math, this math. If we just say that let's work with the Johnson & Johnson figure that we've just been given there by Karo Kariuki. $10.
I see where this is going, but go on.
How many doses are we talking about? 14 billion shillings divided by 10, by 100. No, it's 1,000.
1,000.
Just divide by 1,000. How many is that? What's that? Remove
14
remove
billion.
3 zeros from the 14 billion. What do you get?
14 million.
Yes. Yes, you get 14 million.
So the government has set aside money to vaccinate 14 million people this financial year, between now and June next year.
If fully
and
vaccinated.
they've already said they want 10 million if fully vaccinated. Now,
Yes.
we're working with a single shot of
Johnson & Johnson. Yes,
right?
now we are good.
They're saying the government has a plan to vaccinate 10 million Kenyans by December this year. Okay? So this 14 million shillings, 14 million people, we can comfortably be sorted by, let's say, June next year. Okay? Is 14 million adults, because you're only dealing with 18 and above. Out of how many adults? A population of 48. How many are above 18? Let's even work it out and say, okay, 50% of the population. So 20, 30. We're looking at vaccinating 30 million people. So that's why now they're saying 30 million people by 2023. So the private sector comes in and says, increase this by us contributing. Are you saying that it was not possible for this government to put 30 billion shillings into vaccines this year?
Why? You see, the same way you said that it's a problem. Why would they do that when the possibility of somebody like the private sector comes in to say, we will supplement, we will augment this? Why would they do that? Because historically it has been that there will always be somebody to step in. So you put your number out there, you place your bet, you put your number out there, and you know that somebody's going to come and match it. You know.
In my books, it
Why would you do
would
that?
have been possible in a 3 trillion shillings budget to put 28 billion shillings to vaccines alone.
You could.
3 trillion shilling budget. What is 28 billion?
Actually, you could. You know why? I'm looking at the list of the budget.
Things.
Yes, and I'm looking at, okay, MH allocation was 121 billion.
All right.
Understood. Education was 202 billion.
Right.
Got it. Transport 182 billion. Don't got it. Agriculture 60 billion. I'm not very sure I understand it. Elderly and vulnerable 1.8 billion. Vaccination and immunization 3.9 billion. Defense 294 billion. Okay.
Right.
I left it for last. It was actually number 2 on my list, and I'm thinking, I understand we need a budget. What do we need 294 billion shillings for? We are not at war with anybody.
This is defense and security, or just defense?
Defense.
So what I'm separating them is, if it's defense and security, we're talking about police going all the way to the military. Are we only talking about the military?
It is defense.
Not national security.
Defense.
Our military in Somalia is getting subsidized by the UN.
They are
Is it
heavily
the AU or the UN or whoever?
Yes, they are.
Right?
Yes.
Bottom line, it would have been possible to put aside 28 billion. We can look for money. We can look for ways in which we can actually do this 28 billion.
Do you remember when COVID hit the UK? What did they do? They sat. Budget had been passed. They rebudgeted it. Why is it that something... Is it really that complicated to look at everything that we've budgeted for and say, folks, let's chip a bit out of this and say, let's get our people well and healthy first, all right? And then these are the discussions that we're having. Because do you really want to have internal strife where people don't know where the next bill is coming from? They're unhappy. People are killing each other. You're having all these problems. What sort of country are you running when the very basic needs that your people have don't seem to be a priority to you?
It's not what sort of country are you running. It's that you're not running the country. It's not happening. Because at the end of the day, people who seek office is not to govern or lead some amorphous building somewhere. It's not. It is people. Now, over whom are you leading? Over what are you leading if the people there are not able to feed themselves, are not able to get the right sustenance that they require, are not able to access medical care and health? So if these people essentially fall apart or fall off the face of the earth, what exactly is it that you're governing and leading over? A percentage of people that are most vulnerable? And I keep saying, if you look at how the most vulnerable in your society are being taken care of or are being catered for or being cared for, if you look at that and you look at their status at any one time, that is the measure of your country. That's the measure. You can't take the minority population or the minority percentage and say, we will gauge our progress on this. You must gauge on what the worst situation is at that time. That is how you're then able to tell and say, okay, guys, this is actually where we are. You have the money, it's available, but you choose to make the decision to say, all right, let's do this much, hoping for more later. What exactly is the plan? If your people are not protected, how will you then be able to spur these other things? Economic activity, development, progression, the building of infrastructure, etc., etc. How will you be able to do it? It doesn't paint the best picture. It really, really doesn't. And Interesting. I mean, not just here, but in other places where it is not seen as a priority. So that's why I do agree with the private sector in that case. That we're trying to get the economy running again. We're trying to get people to be able to be back and doing their job. How will we do that if people are protected against this disease that is out there? And they need to be out there in order to operate, right? So we protect them by giving them this vaccine. Why is that thinking so difficult to grasp?
An evil thought has just crossed my mind. And I'm thinking, ask yourself, and it is you who began this conversation, and that has led to this thought crossing my mind. We keep talking about this thing, finding new words to describe the same thing, and new perspective to describe the same thing. But this thing whose sameness seems to get varied with every passing day, let's look at it in its naked self and say, what are we looking at? We're looking at a situation that any activity related to it gives the impression that it is difficult to manage. Is it really difficult to manage? The answer is no, it isn't.
No, it isn't.
Because more complex situations or similar situations have been handled with great aplomb. They've worked and you've seen them working. So, the deliberateness in this is not to make it work, but to have a conversation like the one we're having, where we are constantly whining and pining and talking about something that isn't working because there's somebody who has crafted it so that it doesn't work, or so that that discussion is continuous. Because of all the wonderful, well-educated, well-resourced human resource we have in this country and in government.
There should be a better show for it.
No. We have people who really know what to do, how to do it, when to do it. They do. And yet we're still having this conversation. You listen to the plans that are there and they are wonderful. Yes, there's no plan that is foolproof. There's no plan that is perfect. We get it. But how is it that this simple communication problem that we keep highlighting and talking about, it seems to be marking time on the same spot? We talk around it, there seems to be, then we go back right there. And you're saying, why don't you just say what it is that is happening? Do you remember when we had the Director of Health, the Ministry of Health Director? When was it he told us that the vaccines would be coming? Let's start with when was he here?
He was here on Thursday, the 19th of August.
Yes. So he was telling us what he knew to be the truth. So this disconnect, there are people who actually buy it. He doesn't buy it, that's for sure. Okay? But he was clearly informed that those vaccines would be here on this day. And he was speaking authoritatively because that's what he had been told.
Yeah.
So is this disconnect something that is beyond them? Is it that the manufacturer said, you know something, we will supply it, but like this Johnson & Johnson, the company that actually manufactures this vaccine is nestled in the Netherlands. It's called Janssen's Pharmaceuticals. Netherlands is nearer than the US. Okay? Now I'm speaking like a native.
Yes, you are.
Yes. So it should not take longer. Netherlands, 8-hour flight, 8 and a bit to Kenya. Okay? No 14 hours. What am I saying? I'm saying that the situation that we're in is deliberate.
To what end?
Well, I am thinking, and that's the evil thought. The thinking is that it is easier to govern and rule a people who are always worrying about what they're going to eat the next day.
Who are in a constant state of beg.
Yeah, there isn't much energy to focus on anything else. Even when you talk about the sort of leaders you should choose, that becomes an esoteric discussion because the focus is, will I eat today? Forget tomorrow. Tomorrow is far. Will I eat today? Will I survive today? Then when you get to tomorrow, you say, oh, I'm at tomorrow. All right, let's focus on what we're going to do. So when someone talks to you about the future, things we want to do, say, look, I get the discussion, but actually, that 50 bob you talked about, it would make a lot more sense.
Now.
Yeah, because it's what concerns me. The other thing that you're talking about, that one, yeah, fine. Academically, I get it, but it's not my immediate concern.
It's not my concern.
Yes.
It's not my concern right now.
There's a lot of uncertainty around it. You know, on that same day when Dr. Andrew Muller was here, I was just going through my notes, right? It was the same day that Aidan Duale was here. And in fact, remember, Eden Dwale was telling us, yes, the 35 billion shillings budget for vaccination, I think was for the next 3 or so financial years, or maybe this financial year and the next one. Because Andrew Muller came and said, 35 billion shillings? No. So 35 billion shillings, if you just go with that, it's 35 million people.
It was aspirational.
It's 35 million people. But it's possible for the government to set aside 35 billion shillings in one financial year and say this is a health emergency. We're going to put in money into it so we can get our people vaccinated.
Yes.
This thing of saying, let's just vaccinate 11 million people this financial year, and then now from the next government will come in and vaccinate another 10 million people, and then maybe let's see how many donations we can get.
It's too hodgepodge. I mean, for heaven's sake. Huh?
So far, our own money has not brought in any vaccine. All the vaccines that we have in the country are donations. How many million people? 4 million so far. Not a shilling of ours has
vaccinated
anybody yet.
And we had
the ones that are arriving tonight, okay, if we were just to go with the logic, it's donation from the private sector. It's individual Kenyans have bought these vaccines. Their taxes have not yet vaccinated a single person.
In addition to the taxes that they have already paid the government,
they have bought their own vaccines.
Yes, in addition.
263,000. Okay? Muchezo. Yeah. No. There's somebody who had posted a comment there, I think, saying about how government workers are. Although also Daniel is saying, you guys are missing a point, the three of you. All of you are missing a point.
Okay.
Folks, the Kenya government wants jobless hustlers to be wiped out by COVID. So the unemployment noise is put to rest.
Oh, man. There's one for conspiracy theories.
That's an evil mind. You're saying it's an evil mind.
It is
so
not.
Evil thoughts.
It is not as far-fetched.
Evil thoughts.
You think.
Very many evil thoughts.
It is not as far-fetched as you think. There is a research that was conducted. The article appears on page 12 of the Star. Okay, and what this research focused on was on people who live in low-resourced areas, areas that we refer to as slums. Okay. And one of the things that happened, the outcome of that particular research was, they say that 70% of those who were surveyed reported, Okay. Let me summarize what this report says. The majority of those who live in these areas, apart from just having decreased incomes, all right, what also happens is that the vast majority, they're saying over 50% of those who live in these areas, just from the sample size of 500 plus that they took, if you look at that, are COVID positive. Now, if someone tells you that that is a statistic, now these people live there, but that's not where they live from morning to evening. They work, they go out, they mingle with other Kenyans, right? It paints a very dismal picture. Now, do we have statistics to tell us that people in these low-resourced areas, what percentage of these people have been vaccinated? Do we know that in this country?
No.
Do we have any such knowledge?
No.
No, we do not.
People
now,
who live in low-income areas, numbers of whom may have been vaccinated.
Yes,
we don't have that.
Because the truth of the matter is the largest population, for instance, in this country, or rather, let's start with Nairobi, in the city, the largest number of people are in these areas. That's where the bulk of the people in this country are, or this county are.
No, we don't have that demographic.
So if that research is telling you that close to 50%, over 50% of them have COVID positive, now what do you think that tells you? Are you going to start debating, do you know about the research? It's there. So when somebody comes and makes a statement like that, I'm telling you, it's not as far-fetched as you imagine.
It's 9:30. Let's take a look at the weather. Is it going to rain today in Kenya, or is it not? Is it too cold in Kenya? Is it not? Well, we know there's some parts of this country that are just too dry, and people are facing starvation. So very soon, we'll start also contributing. We are contributing to get people vaccinated. We are contributing to get people out of hospital. We are contributing to bury people. We will also be contributing to feed people. And we are contributing to keep our government running. That's our job. Karibu Kenya, nchi ya Harambee.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
There's so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi umbo yako iko na
nini umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning, highs of 22 and lows of 13. It's partly sunny in Nakuru at 18, highs of 24, lows of 14 as well. Light rain in Nyeri town at 15, highs of 20 and lows of 13. Out in Kisumu, it's mostly cloudy, highs of 29 and lows of 18 today. And in Kakamega, it's 22 and raining still, highs of 27 and lows of 15. In Mombasa, it's mostly cloudy at 26, highs of 28 and lows of 23. Malindi continues to rain at 27, highs of 29 and lows of 25. All right, let's look out into Kampala, where this morning it is 21 degrees and mostly sunny, highs of 25 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam continues to rain at 26 with highs of 30 and lows of 21. Looking out into Lagos, it's 25 degrees and raining heavily now, 29 the high and lows of 25, and in Kinshasa mostly cloudy conditions at 22 with highs of 29. Let's take a look then out into Beijing, where at 30 degrees it's sunny, coming down to lows of 22, and in London today cloudy conditions at 15, highs of 21 and lows of 14. Paris at 30 degrees is sunny, highs of 27, and New York clear at 18 coming into Friday. The flood situation still continues in the northeastern US. 23 will be the high and lows of 16.
Spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life.
All right, still traffic on Langata Road this morning getting into the city, that construction there. Where we see main traffic today is in the middle of the city. The CBD is quite packed. A little bit here and there on Gong Road, and also Mombasa Road continues to be inbound traffic, as well as Jogo Road, quite a lot of that. The Thika Superhighway today, not quite sure what that issue is, but still traffic heavy as when it started 2.5 hours ago. So let's watch out for this one. Not necessarily anything going wrong, but just heavy traffic on the roads this morning. Keep an eye on things. Keep us also in the know. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
25 to 10. So there's somebody on Twitter. What's that Twitter handle?
All Fabs, OBZIM. Okay. Government officials' duties are simple, but lazy people take up these roles and don't want to be accountable. Private sector will continue to help as a concerned citizen while the G officials government keep sleeping on their duties.
So people are supposed to be doing their job? No, they don't do their job. And we come in and chip in.
Yep.
And do the job on their behalf. With their assistance.
And our
having
money.
paid them to do the job. Okay. Ed in Nanyuki, good morning.
Morning, guys. How you doing?
Fine,
Well,
thanks,
thank you,
Ed.
I'm in Nyeri actually, and it's drizzling like crazy. Now,
It's drizzling like crazy.
yes.
And so when it starts raining like crazy, Ed, what will happen?
Okay, not cats and dogs. That's a new one.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing.
Your passengers are loud behind you.
Well, actually, I don't have any passengers. I'm at the garage. Now, the thing is, Eric, there is a time I remember I had inboxed you informing you about the health crisis that is happening. I don't think you checked it. You need to check it and see.
I missed it. Just tell us about it.
So here's the thing. I think the health crisis, part of it is the government, and part of it, there are some power brokers in it.
Uh-huh.
I'm telling you that because when I had inboxed you, it was, imagine, some simple thing like the cannula needle, the one that you used to be given IV drip.
Mm.
In Nyeri, you need to buy. Some simple things like gloves, you need to buy. There is this place known as Mutara Hospital, a level 4 hospital. It's on your way to Maua at a place known as Morere. During that time I was writing to you, a person got hit by a vehicle. And he had to be rushed to hospital. And that guy spent overnight in that hospital, and he couldn't be attended to because there was no gloves in that place. Now, when we look at the whole COVID vaccine issue, that is just the icing on the cake. The cake is, there is more sugar in the cake than the icing itself. The health sector currently is completely rotten. And that is why you find, for example, yesterday we had the discussion with the private hospital guys that they usually, inflate costs.
Yeah.
As much as they were jumping, it's true, they do inflate costs. Here's the thing. They do that because even when you go to the public hospital, they know if you go to a public hospital, you're just going to a carcass. So this is the only thing that is there, and so they have to take advantage of that because the system itself is rotten. Why? Because you even find some of the docs who work in the hospital, the public hospital, they have their own private entities. They sabotage the public hospital so that the private entity, they would refer you to a private entity. My grandmother, some time back, he had to be taken out a tooth, and it couldn't happen in Nyeri PGH, and he was referred to the dentist to another place. Only 40 minutes later to arrive at that place, and then the doctor comes. The same doctor.
Same doctor.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to tell you this. The health sector needs a whole workout from bottom up. Or bottom up,
okay.
Whatever. Because it is rotten. I can tell you that City, I have been an asthmatic for a very long time. So I can tell you I've been with the health sector for some time. And I can tell you, like, when I was young, I could go to the hospital, and I knew that I'm going to get adrenaline, aminophylline, and hydrocortisone injections. I had a very good doctor then who was known as Dr. Mbogo. He's still there at level 5. And that time, it was smooth sailing. Right now, I don't think I can have an asthmatic attack and even go to take a level 5, or not even take a level 5. Up a PGH, I can't go. I'll rather go to a private hospital or get as many inhalers as I can. You will die in the casualties. That one I can tell you because I have seen it.
It's a sick system, this health one.
It's not just sick. I think it's the entire HDU department. They are just dead and gone.
That's very
and
true.
I can tell you, even if they are funded, they are the ones who are going to sabotage the system itself for their own advantage. That one I can tell you for a fact. Because for example, that guy I'm telling you who got hit by a car. Do you know the family, the employers of that guy, they had to resource some transport that day to refer the person to Mary General. You can imagine a whole day, a whole night you spent. The only thing you're being given is this intravenous fluid, this water. Hiyo tu ndo unapewa a whole night, umegongwa na gari, and then the next morning that's when people are trying to source out where they're going to take you. You can imagine you're moving all the way right now from Mokoreni to come to Nyeri. You go to hospital referral and you're told, no, before you come with cannula, come with this, come with this. Me, I think the last time, we were supposed to buy basins or slippers, flip-flops. So there are things we need to buy and you're being admitted. But now it's not being even admitted. Being even attended to. You need some simple things that the government needs to have.
Yeah. Ed, we hear you and we hear the pain. Thank you very much for calling. Seth in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning to you, Latif.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, now the current situation in our country, honestly, I could tell people, if you cannot afford to take yourself to a private hospital, then if you get sick, you'd rather pray that you don't die. Otherwise, depending on our private sector to provide health, it's totally a circus, it's a mess. Yeah, so the point, I could advise those people who can manage to pay for the insurance, however little it can be. And if you can afford to take yourself to a private hospital, it can help. Otherwise, the situation at our public hospital is totally a mess. It's chaotic.
Seth, you're basically saying we are on our own.
Sorry?
You're basically saying we are on our own.
Of course, 100%.
Do whatever you can do to sort yourself out, because...
Do whatever you can do. If you can.
So do you support this move to... Would you, if you were able to, would you pay through KEPSA to get the COVID vaccine?
We are in a point where we don't have trust in people in leadership. Otherwise, we feel like there could be something behind it. Like people don't really come out clean to help. If somebody doesn't stand a chance to gain something out of it, we don't trust anything that is brought to us, whether through the government, whether through the private partnership. That's how much faith we have in people in the leadership in our country. So even this partnership with the KEPSA or whatever you guys were explaining earlier on, how can we be sure that somebody doesn't stand a chance to gain something out of it behind the scenes, and we are being told everything? We don't have faith in whatever that is brought to us.
Okay.
For the poor, it's them and their God. If you get sick, pray that you get well soon. You recover by yourself. Otherwise, going to the hospital, it really doesn't help.
Thank you very much, Seth.
You're welcome, Latif.
Have a lovely day. 0719-012-600 if you'd like to contribute to the conversation we're having this morning. Tycoon Wake, I think that's what you're calling yourself on Twitter, River Rodi, says he's willing to, I'm assuming that this is a man, they're willing to take the 1,000 bob jab, that single shot, because the government is getting dumped vaccines from the other parts of the world and stealing them, lying that we are buying them.
And that is actually not true.
It's not true.
That is actually not true. There are cases where governments have swapped vaccines, like South Africa. Once a Johnson & Johnson vaccine came into being and had the emergency approvals, they were willing to exchange the AstraZeneca vaccines for the Johnson & Johnsons.
Right.
That happens. There are countries that have not been able to utilize whatever vaccines they have, or have seen that the need isn't quite there, or the demand isn't as great as it was, and they have offered to donate it. I mean, forget foreign countries. We've had countries neighboring countries who have done the same.
Who have donated them to us.
Yes.
Because they were about to expire.
Yes, and they did not have the capacity to actually utilize them. So the alternative was...
Well, they didn't have the need for them at that time.
Yes, but... See, need here is actually demonstrated by...
Capacity.
Yes, capacity. We have the capacity. They can see the trends and they know this thing is going to expire. So why waste it?
Why waste it? Give it to somebody who can use it
now.
Today.
Yes.
Eunice in Nairobi. Good morning.
Morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Just to add on what you guys are saying, it's so unfortunate that our health center doesn't really care about people who are living with non-communicable
Oh, Eunice, please switch off your radio.
Yeah, sorry for that.
Okay.
Just saying that it's so shameful that our own government doesn't care about people who are living with non-communicable diseases. Because personally, I do advocacy for people who are living with sickle cell. This is a month of creating awareness for sickle cell. Nobody has come and told us that you need to take a COVID vaccine because you're living with sickle cell. What they'll say is that you are at high risk because your immune systems are low.
Yep.
When I get a sickle cell crisis or a painful crisis, my symptoms look like COVID. So instead of the doctor taking care of me for my sickle cell crisis pain, they will isolate me and treat me as a COVID patient.
Without being tested first?
Yep.
And without knowing your history?
Yep. And when you tell them, they'll tell you like kawaida. Kama ulijua supeka nyumbani ujitibu. So basically what I decided to do, I have a group of doctors who are on call, especially from last year to this year. Anytime a sickle cell patient gets sick, they'll call them and they'll attend to them, either on phone or if they are close to each other, then they'll tell the patient to go to where they are. Because going to like a facility, a healthcare facility where they tell you, come in, we'll sort you out, doesn't happen. Insurance will treat you like you have a chronic disease. We all know sickle cell is not something that you go and catch. It's something you're born with. You inherit the genes from your parents, both parents. And it's so unfortunate when I started doing advocacy from 2014, the so-called Ministry of Health told us, you mean you people exist.
Wow.
Like, they don't have data. I think the last data they did was in 1982.
Actually, they do have data. You probably came across somebody who didn't have all the information. Yes, but they actually do have data. They're actually fairly well informed about that subject. And sickle cell there.
I think they do have the information.
Eunice, so what this is, you're saying this is the month for sickle cell awareness.
I also sit in their board, and sometimes I always argue about, because right now my priority, finally we did the guidelines in like a month ago. But my priority right now is, can they help us just to have like a register for people who are living with sickle cell alone, and then come and now tell us people who are living with non-communicable diseases, let's give them a unique or a balanced healthcare service. Yeah, because when you apply for insurance, they call you have a pre-existing disease, which they can't give you a full cover unless you add extra cash. And then you need to have your specific doctor who will tell you where to see them. So if you don't have this doctor, especially watu wa mashinani, it's very hard just also to get numbers out of these people.
Eunice, I'd like you to just stay on the line and maybe speak to our producer, John, because this is the Sickle Cell Awareness Month. And I'd like to give you an opportunity so we can actually have this conversation in the Situation Room, create awareness about sickle cell, understand what people who are living with sickle cell go through, what needs to be done, and also what has been done by government so far.
I really appreciate it.
Asante sana, Eunice.
Thank you.
Teddy Invoy, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, sir. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Latif, I'm so happy I'm here again.
We're happy that you're here.
But let's face the facts. Number one, every now and then we are promised by the leaders when they come to power that they will give us free medication, or rather they'll make sure they improve the medication sector. We are looking at it from the perspective whereby we are in the campaign period and everyone is talking about issues of medication and the like. Looking at what is happening right now with the COVID issue, you remember there was a time that it was mandatory for people to be tested. But it's so sad that at this point in time, everyone is campaigning for the jab without the testing. So again, it begs the question, are we doing things the other way around? Number two, lots of I would like to say, the government is actually is not doing much that it should be doing, because we're looking at the health sector compared to any public sector, be it schools and all that. You realize that at the end of the day, even the public schools, there's a problem.
Yeah.
The same way we have the public hospitals and all that, where doctors, they swore to oath and they're not giving sufficient services as they swore to their oath. So the bottom line is, like, Kenyans, we are on our own. And I can bet you, unless someone has the position, then it becomes a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teddy. Joseph in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning, sir. There is that caller from Nyeri.
Yes.
And he said something that will take me back to what I said yesterday. We need to know who to educate on what. It doesn't mean that the government has not facilitated these hospitals, but they will sabotage it so that their own can, prosper.
Yeah.
You come from this hospital, and they tell you, no, unless you buy this, we can't treat you unless you buy that. So even if you buy, you are in doubt. If there is another hospital next there where there is everything, you just go there. Immediately
But Joseph,
you pay the 2,000.
I think it also points to the fact that the healthcare worker has not been facilitated adequately in that facility. If, for example, you're a doctor and you know very well that you don't have proper medication here, you don't have the proper tools, a lab is not well equipped to conduct the tests, that's how come you find that there is demand for private facilities. And the same doctors will then establish the private facility.
I have confidence in this. You go to, there's a hospital in Juja by the name Karimoni, and there is a private one in Juja Center. I won't name it. But you go, I went to that Karimoni, I took my friend's kid, and kuna dawa tuliandikiwa because they don't have. When we went to buy it, when we went to that clinic, and we also bought the medicine there, the medicine has your ya gava, it is hard. I have another scenario. Once upon a time, I was ever married. I took my wife to a Dr. Washira somewhere in Upper Hill. And the same Dr. Washira is the one who has told us in Kenyatta Hospital that there is a shortage of, there was a certain 2 injections that she needed because of the legs were swelling and all that. And he told us they are not to talk, but there is a hospital he knows, there is a clinic he knows, there we will get, and we will get a good one. He was even specific, a good one and the original one. And actually we went there. Surprisingly, he came along. And going outside as we were leaving, we had someone complain, saying, these people, they don't want to treat us for free, and they have been paid by the government. They want to still get the payment and also make their own money in the year. So it's like a double pay or a triple pay. So yesterday when I was saying, you need to know who to educate on what, because you see a clever person will take the salary from the hospital and also get more cash on his own clinic.
A clever
and
one.
It means he will be in hospital directing, he will be there in hospital being paid, but he is being paid to direct the patients to his own clinic. But a genius one will get the education, end up being a doctor, and in the end, he will perfect the sector and he will be paid in a super way by the same government.
But, I mean, to be fair, there are always unscrupulous individuals in any profession that you can think of. And then there are actually those who actually do what they say they would, and they live up to whatever oath of office or profession that they have chosen. So,
yes, you know where the problem is, Professor?
Tell me, please.
The so-called up-bottom or bottom-up. You know, when you are getting the education, whatever was around you and whatever you could see and whatever you could hear happening being done by the professionals of the sector. You wanna be a professional someday. You're gonna end up doing the same thing.
Yeah, the power of example. That's very true.
Yes, so the bottom up, the up bottom, whatever that is, there's a problem there.
Thank you very much, Joseph.
Okay.
Have a lovely day and a lovely weekend. Grid is asking, why aren't we demanding accountability from the government despite continually paying taxes? The hopelessness and despair will not change the situation. The private sector should also be demanding accountability beyond just chipping in. So as we chip in, we say, this is the last time
this will happen.
I'm giving you. See the way you do when you're dealing with someone who's been coming to you for help. You draw a line.
You do. If you have the energy, the strength to do so, you would. I want to add an addendum to the article I'd referred to. Yes, page 12 talks about the impact of COVID, how it bites, but my reference actually should have been on page 16 of the Star, not page 12. Because the headline of that one is most city slum dwellers have been infected with COVID-19. Clear and simple. And then there's an article that follows. But why am I going back to that? You see, if you have an issue that you consider to be of importance and the facts surrounding it are also not clear, then you may even try and provide a solution, but that solution will never actually solve anything because you aren't really dealing with the import of what you should be dealing with. We may not know this, but part of a culture that we have developed and we feel that it serves our purposes adequately, whether you're a social media warrior, whether you are a litigator or whatever position that you've chosen for yourself, we sometimes think that when we voice something, write something, and talk about it in as loud a manner as we can, in the way that we can, that is, it's adequate. It is a good start. But we must find new and inventive ways of ensuring that we get the attention of those, not just in terms of what we say, but even how we say it.
How we say it. With those tasked with responsibility to actually get these
Yes,
things
and how we treat
done.
them and how we take them.
Very true. The proverb then, as we head into the weekend.
Where there are elders, you don't pour water anyhowly.
Okay. Sawa, tumekusikia.
Sawa.
Will you be in next week?
Nope. I am taking time off.
You're going to pour water anyhow.
You're going to sit where they are pouring water anyhow.
Actually, the pouring water, the elders here are actually us taxpayers. And the government is pouring water anyhow.
Anyhowly.
Yes.
Okay.
We are the elders here.
Thank you for tuning into the Situation Room this week. Join us again next week, Monday to Friday, God willing, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. CT. We'll take some time off to cheer up with his fellow elders. Have a lovely weekend, folks. Good morning, it's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life